Hello everyone, and welcome to the DXD Tales. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei awakened the power of the Witcher's elder blood. Issei x Yennefer x Rias Gremory, The Witcher x DXD. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Crimson Awakening. The dream always began the same way. A field of swaying aspen trees, their silver leaves catching moonlight like thousands of tiny mirrors. Issei Hyodo stood barefoot in dew-soaked grass, watching as a crimson mist crept between the trunks. Unlike the vague nonsense of normal dreams, every detail here felt hyper-real. The cool moisture between his toes, the scent of petrichor mixed with something metallic. The weight of the air against his skin. Again, he whispered, his breath visible despite the lack of cold. A woman's silhouette appeared among the trees, her form obscured by swirling mist. Only her eyes were clear, violet irises that seemed to hold galaxies within them. She extended her hand, lips moving in a language that sounded like shattered glass being swept across stone. "I don't understand," Issei called, taking an involuntary step forward. The woman's expression shifted to urgency. The mist between them began to coalesce, forming intricate patterns that reminded Issei of the constellations he'd studied in astronomy class, but wrong somehow, as if depicting stars from another sky altogether. "Your blood remembers what your mind cannot," the woman said, her voice suddenly clear. "When the spheres align once more, the elder lineage will awaken." Blood began to drip from Issei's nose, falling to the grass in perfect spherical droplets that didn't splash or flatten. They hovered just above the blades, vibrating with an energy he could feel resonating in his bones. "What's happening to me?" he asked, reaching toward the floating crimson orbs. The woman's form began to dissipate. "Find me between the worlds, child of the elder blood. The hunt already senses you." A sound like a frozen lake cracking echoed through the forest. The aspen trees shattered into crystalline fragments, revealing an infinite darkness punctuated by distant stars. The droplets of Issei's blood expanded into swirling vortices, each containing glimpses of unfamiliar landscapes. Stone citadels perched on mountain cliffs, twisted creatures stalking through primeval forests, armored riders with skeletal faces galloping across a frozen sea. Issei felt himself being pulled apart, molecules stretching across vast distances. Just before the sensation became unbearable, he heard the woman's final whisper. "The swallow flies between worlds. Remember, Hyodo, if my class is interrupting your nap, perhaps you'd prefer detention instead." Issei jerked upright, a thin trail of drool connecting his cheek to his math textbook. Several classmates snickered as he hastily wiped his mouth, disorientation clouding his thoughts. For a moment, he could still smell the forest from his dream. "Sorry, Tanaka-sensei," he mumbled, blinking rapidly to clear the fog from his mind. The middle-aged teacher adjusted his glasses with exaggerated precision. "Since you've clearly absorbed today's lesson through osmosis, perhaps you'd like to solve the equation on the board." Issei squinted at the jumble of symbols, numbers, and variables. Normally, he'd have no idea where to begin. Math had always been his weakest subject. But something strange happened as he stared at the equation. The symbols seemed to rearrange themselves, connections forming that he'd never noticed before. Without fully understanding how he knew, the answer materialized in his mind. "X equals 3.75, he said, surprising himself. Tanaka-sensei's eyebrows shot up. He turned to check the board, then consulted his teacher's addition textbook. "That's correct," he admitted, unable to hide his astonishment. "Though I'd be more impressed if you showed your work." The bell rang, saving Issei from further scrutiny. As students packed their belongings, his friend Matsuda leaned over. "Since when are you a math genius?" he asked, eyebrows wiggling suggestively. "Hiding secret talents from us." "Lucky guess," Issei replied, rubbing his temples against a building headache. That dream had left him feeling strange, like his skin didn't fit quite right. Motohama adjusted his glasses. "Never mind that. Did you hear a third-year girl was murdered near the abandoned church last night? They say her body was completely drained of blood." "Dude, don't joke about that," Issei said, shoving books into his bag. "I'm not joking. It's all over the local news forums. They're say It might be some kind of ritual killing. Something cold slithered down Issei's spine. The church on the hill with the broken stained glass. Yeah, that's the one. Why? Issei hesitated. He couldn't explain the sudden certainty that he needed to see that church, the same certainty that had given him the answer to the equation. No reason. I've gotta go. There's something I need to check. What about our plan to spy on the Kendo Club? Matsuda whined. You guys go ahead. I'll catch up later. Outside, cherry blossoms swirled across the schoolyard like pale pink snow, but Issei barely noticed. The persistent headache had intensified, accompanied by an odd buzzing sensation at the base of his skull. He found himself walking toward the hill on the outskirts of town without consciously deciding to go there. As Kuo Academy disappeared behind him, Issei passed beneath the shadow of an electrical tower. A sudden wave of dizziness nearly brought him to his knees. The world around him seemed to flicker, for an instant. The familiar streets of his neighborhood were replaced by a cobblestone road lined with buildings of an architecture he'd never seen before. The vision vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving him gasping. What the hell was that? He muttered, pressing his palms against his eyes. A woman's voice drifted from nearby. Excusez-moi, jeune homme. Pourrais vous m'indiquer le chemin vers l'église? Issei lowered his hands to find a striking blonde woman in a nun's habit standing before him. Her expression was open and innocent, a small suitcase clutched in her delicate hands. Though she'd spoken in what sounded like French, Issei understood her perfectly. She was asking for directions to the church. Ah, you're looking for the church, he replied in Japanese. Actually, I'm heading that way myself. The nun's face brightened. Oh, you understand. Thank God, she said, switching to heavily accented Japanese. I'm Asia Argento. I've been transferred to the church here. But I got a little lost. Issei Hyodo, he introduced himself, offering to carry her suitcase. The church is up on that hill, but you might want to reconsider going there today. I heard there was some kind of incident nearby last night. Asia's green eyes widened. An incident? What happened? Before Issei could answer, the buzzing in his skull intensified. The world seemed to tilt sideways as a wave of nausea hit him. Without warning, his vision split, one eye seeing Asia's concerned face, the other seeing a towering creature with leathery wings and glowing red eyes descending from the sky behind her. Get down, he shouted, lunging forward. He tackled Asia to the ground as something hot and bright sliced through the air where they'd been standing. The concrete sidewalk melted into slag where the energy struck. My, your instincts are impressive for a human, came a silky feminine voice. Most can't sense us until it's far too late. Issei scrambled to his feet, positioning himself between Asia and the hovering figure. The woman, if she could be called that, had blue-black hair, violet eyes, and a curvaceous figure barely contained by an outfit that resembled leather bondage gear. Most alarmingly, a pair of feathered black wings extended from her back, beating slowly to keep her aloft. What are you? Issei demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. The winged woman's lips curved into a predatory smile. I am Rainer, a fallen angel. And you, Issei Hyodo, are a potential problem that needs elimination. She formed another spear of light in her hand. Nothing personal. We simply can't risk what you might become. Asia clutched the cross at her throat. Please stop. He's just an innocent boy. Innocent. Rainer laughed coldly. Perhaps for now, but the energy signature he's begun emitting recently suggests otherwise. Step aside, sister. My quarrel isn't with you. Issei's mind raced. Fallen angels. Energy signatures. None of this made sense. Yet the danger felt undeniably real. He glanced around for anything he could use as a weapon, finding nothing but decorative landscaping rocks. Run, he whispered to Asia. Get help. The nun shook her head stubbornly. I won't leave you. Rainer sighed dramatically. How touching. I'm afraid neither of you is going anywhere. She hurled the light spear directly at Issei's chest. Time seemed to slow. The buzzing in Issei's head crescendoed to a deafening roar as the spear of light approached. His blood felt like it was boiling in his veins, pressure building beneath his skin until he thought he might explode. Your blood remembers what your mind cannot. Asterisk. The strange woman's words from his dream echoed in his consciousness. Without understanding how, Issei raised his hand toward the incoming spear. A scream tore from his throat. not of fear, but of release, as crimson energy erupted from his palm. The air between Issei and the light spear fractured like breaking glass. Through the cracks, glimpses of other places flashed. A snow-covered mountain pass, a burning village, a castle perched on a cliff overlooking a churning sea. The spear disappeared into one of these rifts, vanishing completely. Rainer's confident expression faltered. What did you just do? Issei stared at his hand in shock. Veins beneath his skin glowed with faint red light that pulsed in rhythm with his racing heartbeat. The cracks in reality slowly sealed themselves, leaving no trace of the strange phenomenon. I don't, he began, but another wave of dizziness overwhelmed him. Blood began streaming from his nose, metallic taste flooding his mouth. The fallen angel recovered quickly, her expression hardening. So the rumors were true. You're not just a potential sacred gear user, you're something else entirely. She created another light spear, larger than before. All the more reason you can't be allowed to live. Asia stepped forward, arms outstretched. I won't let you hurt him. Foolish girl, Rainer hissed. The church's pet healer, defending an abomination. Your superiors would be so disappointed. Issei tried to push Asia behind him, but his limbs felt leaden. Whatever he'd done had drained him completely. Blood continued to pour from his nose, spattering his school uniform. Rainer launched her spear. Asia screamed. Issei closed his eyes, certain he was about to die. The impact never came. My, a fallen angel attacking children in broad daylight. Standards have certainly slipped since I was last here. Issei opened his eyes to see a new figure standing before them. A woman with long crimson hair that cascaded like living flame down her back had intercepted the light spear with a shield of swirling red-black energy. Rias Gremory. Rainer spat the name like a curse. This doesn't concern your kind, devil. The newcomer, Rias, smiled pleasantly, though her blue-green eyes remained cold. When supernatural beings attack humans in my territory, it very much concerns me. She glanced over her shoulder at Issei, her gaze lingering on the blood staining his face. Especially when those humans display unusual abilities. Another figure stepped from behind Rias, a petite girl with white hair and expressionless golden eyes. Without a word, she launched herself into the air, moving with impossible speed. Before Rainer could react, the girl delivered a devastating kick to the fallen angel's stomach. Kaneko, enough, Rias called. We need her alive for questioning. Rainer recovered midair, fury twisting her features. This isn't over, she snarled. Then vanished in a flutter of black feathers. Issei's legs finally gave out. As he crumpled to the ground, Asia rushed to his side, cradling his head. He needs help, the nun said urgently. Her hands began to glow with a gentle green light as she placed them on Issei's chest. Rias knelt beside them, studying Issei with intense curiosity. What you're doing won't be enough, she told Asia. Whatever power he just manifested has damaged his internal channels. He's hemorrhaging magical energy. I can heal physical wounds, but I know what you are, Holy Maiden. Your twilight healing is impressive, but this requires a different approach. Rias placed her palm on Issei's forehead. Interesting. You're not what I expected at all, Issei Hyodo. Through the haze of pain, Issei managed to ask, how do you know my name? Rias smiled enigmatically. I make it my business to know about unusual individuals in my territory. Though I must admit, I've become considerably more unusual in the past 5 minutes. She produced a crimson chess piece, a pawn, from her pocket. This may not work given what I'm sensing, but it's our best option. What are you doing to him? Asia asked, her healing light still pulsing steadily. Saving his life, Rias replied. And perhaps recruiting a very unique new member to my peerage. The chess piece began to glow with the same red-black energy as Rias's shield. She pressed it against Issei's chest, directly over his heart. I, Rias Gremory, heir to the house of Gremory, call to thee, Issei Hyodo. Turn thy soul from the edge of death and rise as my servant. As my pawn, be reborn. The pain in Issei's body intensified beyond anything he'd thought possible. His back arched off the ground as crimson light enveloped him. Inside his chest, something fought against Rias's magic, the same energy that had opened the rift earlier. The two powers clashed, neither fully dominating. Through tear-blurred eyes, Issei saw Rias's expression shift from confidence to concern to outright astonishment. Impossible, she whispered. The piece isn't being rejected, but it isn't fully assimilating either. What are you? Darkness closed in from the edges of Issei's vision. The last thing he saw before consciousness slipped away was a swirling vortex opening in the sky above, and through it, the silhouette of a woman with raven hair and violet eyes, watching him with intense interest. Worlds away, Yennefer of Vengerberg jerked back from her scrying bowl, water sloshing over the ornate silver onto the polished oak of her laboratory table. The magical connection had been severed abruptly, but not before she'd witnessed something she'd believed impossible. Fascinating, she murmured, reaching for a towel to blot the spilled water. And troubling. The sorceress moved to the window of her tower, gazing out at the snow-covered peaks of the Blue Mountains. 3 days ago, she'd felt it. A surge of elder blood magic more powerful than anything since Issei had last torn open the fabric between worlds. But this had come from somewhere else entirely, not just a different location, but a different sphere. Yennefer returned to her worktable, where dozens of arcane instruments recorded various magical phenomena. The most intricate, an astrolabe-like device with constantly rotating golden rings, had nearly shaken itself apart during the surge. Now it spun lazily, its needles pointing toward an impossible configuration. The conjunction is beginning again, she said to the empty room. Quote, and someone with elder blood is accelerating it. She hadn't seen the boy clearly through the scrying bowl, but she'd felt his power, raw, untrained, but undeniably genuine. Elder blood, the Yennefer of ancient elven legends. The same power that flowed through Cyrilla's veins. But this was different somehow. Mixed with something else, something equally powerful but fundamentally opposed to the elder blood's nature. Most concerning of all were the other beings she'd glimpsed, creatures with black wings wielding weapons of pure light, and others with an aura of darkness that reminded her of higher vampires. Yet fundamentally different, Yennefer began gathering components from various shelves, a jar of powdered periwinkle, a vial of blood from a spotted wyvern, the preserved eye of a cyclops. If her suspicions were correct, the barriers between spheres were weakening, creating points where passage might be possible. A knock at her laboratory door interrupted her preparations. Enter, she called, not looking up from her work. The door opened to reveal a young woman with ashen hair and a distinctive scar across her cheek. Cyrilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon, Issei, stepped into the room, her emerald eyes immediately drawn to the chaos of magical implements scattered across every surface. You felt it too, Issei said. Not a question. Yennefer nodded. 3 days ago, and again just now. Stronger this time. Elder blood, Issei confirmed. But not mine. Who else could possibly? That's what I intend to discover, Yennefer replied, adding crushed mandrake root to the mixture she was preparing. The signature is similar to yours, but with differences I can't explain. It's as if what? As if the elder blood has adapted to survive in an environment fundamentally hostile to its nature. The sorceress looked up, meeting Issei's concerned gaze. I need to find this individual before the wild hunt does. If they've sensed what I have, and we must assume they have, they'll stop at nothing to capture this new elder blood carrier. Issei's hand moved instinctively to the sword at her hip. I should go. I can travel between worlds more easily than anyone. No, Yennefer said firmly. You're the very prize the hunt has sought for decades. I won't risk you exposing yourself. Her expression softened slightly. Besides, whoever this is, they're completely untrained. E-power I witnessed was impressive but wildly unstable. They need guidance before they tear reality apart around them. So you're going instead. How? The conventional portals haven't worked properly since the last conjunction. Yennefer gestured to her brewing potion. I have a theory about that. The barriers between certain spheres are already thinning. With the right catalyst and your blood as a guide, I believe I can create a temporary passage. Issei frowned. That's incredibly dangerous, Yen. Even for you. Perhaps, the sorceress acknowledged with a small smile. But considerably less dangerous than allowing an untrained elder blood carrier to inadvertently trigger another full conjunction of spheres. She continued mixing her concoction. Besides, I'm curious. This world I glimpsed, it has magic unlike anything in our records. You always did enjoy a good mystery, Ciri said, resignation in her voice. When do you leave? Tonight, when the moon reaches its zenith. The thinning between worlds will be at its weakest point then. Ciri stepped closer, placing a hand on Yennefer's arm. Be careful. If you need me, I'll find a way to contact you, Yennefer promised. In the meantime, speak to no one of this, not even Geralt. The fewer who know, the safer this new elder blood carrier will be. As Ciri departed, Yennefer returned to her preparations with renewed focus. The boy she'd glimpsed, surrounded by beings neither human nor familiar non-human, represented both an extraordinary opportunity and a potentially catastrophic threat. If his power continued to manifest uncontrolled, he might inadvertently tear open the barriers between all worlds. Let's hope I reach you before the hunt does, boy, she murmured. For all our sakes. Issei awoke to unfamiliar surroundings, an elegant room with Victorian-style furniture, heavy velvet curtains, and the soft glow of candlelight. He lay on a four-poster bed with crimson sheets, his school uniform replaced by loose-fitting clothes he didn't recognize. Finally awake, I see, came a familiar female voice. Turning his head, Issei found Rias Gremory seated beside the bed, a leather-bound book open in her lap. In the candlelight, her crimson hair seemed to smolder like embers. Where am I? He asked, his throat painfully dry. Rias closed her book and poured water from a crystal decanter into a matching glass. The old school building. My club uses it as our headquarters. She helped him sit up enough to drink. You've been unconscious for nearly 18 hours. Memory flooded back. The fallen angel, the light spear. The cracks in reality. Issei choked on the water, coughing violently. Asia, is she? The nun is fine, Rias assured him, patting his back. Though her superiors at the church were displeased when they learned she'd been involved in the incident. She wanted to stay with you, but they insisted she return to the church immediately. Issei slumped back against the pillows, relief washing through him. His gaze drifted to his hands. Normal now, no glowing veins or residual crimson energy. What happened to me? He asked quietly. That power. The things I saw. Rias studied him with open curiosity. I was rather hoping you could tell me. I've never seen anything quite like it. She set the glass aside. The ritual I performed should have turned you into a devil, a member of my peerage. It partially succeeded, which is why you're still alive, but something inside you resisted the complete transformation. A devil, Issei repeated incredulously. Like, from hell. A small smile touched Rias's lips. Not precisely as human mythology describes us, but yes, that's the general idea. I am a pure-blooded devil from the House of Gremory, one of the remaining 72 pillars of the underworld. Under normal circumstances, Issei might have dismissed such claims as delusion, but after witnessing a woman with black wings throw spears of light, he found himself oddly receptive. And you tried to turn me into one of you. It was the only way to save your life, Rias explained. The fallen angel's attack, combined with whatever power you manifested, was killing you. Reincarnating humans as devils is an established practice. It heals mortal wounds and grants extended lifespan along with various magical abilities. She leaned forward, her expression intensifying. But you, Issei Hyodo, are decidedly not normal. The reincarnation process created a hybrid state I've never encountered before. You're partially devil now, but something else is mixed with your essence. Something ancient and powerful that even my family's magic couldn't override. Issei closed his eyes, remembering the dream that had plagued him for weeks. The woman in my dreams called it elder blood. Rias's eyebrows rose. Elder blood, I'm not familiar with that term. She said, when the spheres align once more, the elder lineage will awaken. And something about a hunt sensing me. Issei opened his eyes, meeting Rias's gaze. Does any of that mean anything to you? The devil princess shook her head slowly. No, but it sounds ominous. She tapped a manicured nail against her book. I've already contacted my brother. He has access to the most comprehensive magical libraries in the underworld. If this, elder blood, is documented anywhere, he'll find it. A knock at the door interrupted them. At Rias's command to enter, a young man with blonde hair and princely features stepped into the room, carrying a tray of food. Ah, perfect timing, Kiba, Rias said. Our guest is awake. Glad to see you recovering. Hyodo-kun, Kiba said with a warm smile. I brought some food. You must be starving after burning that much energy. At the mention of food, Issei's stomach growled audibly. The tray contained a bowl of rich beef stew, freshly baked bread, and a selection of fruits. As Kiba set it across Issei's lap, a flash of insight struck, like the math equation earlier. Issei suddenly knew things about the blonde boy that he couldn't possibly know. You're a sword user, Issei said without thinking. You have multiple blades, each with different properties. Kiba's friendly expression flickered with surprise. That's correct. How did you know? Issei shook his head, equally confused. I don't know. I just saw it somehow. Rias exchanged a meaningful glance with Kiba. Fascinating. Prophetic ability, perhaps. She turned back to Issei. What else do you see about us? Concentrating, Issei looked at Rias. Unlike with Kiba, no immediate insights came. Instead, a strange double vision effect occurred. Rias remained seated beside him, but superimposed over her was a ghostly image of the same woman standing in a grand hall, arguing pass. Innately with a man who looked remarkably similar to her. You're fighting with your brother, Issei said slowly. About an arrangement you don't want. A marriage. The color drained from Rias's face. That's impossible. I haven't told anyone except my queen about the engagement issue. Kiba looked between them, clearly confused. Bushu. What is he talking about? Rias waved her hand dismissively. Nothing important. Kiba, would you excuse us? And please ask Akeno to prepare the magic circle in the club room. I believe we'll need it soon. After Kiba departed, Rias fixed Issei with an intense stare. That information is known to only a handful of devils in the highest echelons of our society. How could you possibly know about my engagement troubles? Issei shrugged helplessly. I didn't know. I just saw it. Like watching a movie played over top of you. He hesitated. Is it true, then? A shadow crossed Rias's beautiful features. Unfortunately, yes. Politics among devil nobility are complex and often archaic. My family has arranged a marriage alliance that I do not find agreeable. That's awful, Issei said, genuine sympathy in his voice. No one should be forced to marry someone they don't love. A sad smile touched Rias's lips. Love is rarely the primary consideration in such arrangements. She straightened, visibly pushing aside the unpleasant topic. But that's a concern for another day. Right now, we need to focus on your situation. Issei nodded, taking a spoonful of the stew. The flavors exploded on his tongue, richer and more complex than any food he'd ever tasted before. This is amazing, he mumbled around a mouthful. Enhanced senses are one benefit of your partial devil nature, Rias explained. Food, music, art, everything will seem more vivid now. As Issei ate, Rias explained the basics of devil society, the great war between the three factions, and the current uneasy peace. She described her peerage, the members of her household, each represented by a chess piece. Who served her as their king? Under normal circumstances, you would have become my pawn, she said. But your unique condition has complicated matters. Issei set aside his empty bowl, feeling strength returning to his limbs. So what happens now? For the moment, you'll stay here where I can protect you. The fallen angels clearly want you dead, and they'll try again. Rias stood, smoothing her school uniform skirt. Once you're fully recovered, we'll begin testing the extent of your abilities, both your devil powers and this, elder blood, you mentioned. A sudden tremor ran through the building, causing the candles to flicker. Rias frowned, her gaze darting to the window. What was that? Issei asked. Before Rias could answer, the door burst open. A beautiful girl with long black hair tied in a ponytail rushed in, her violet eyes wide with alarm. Bushu. Something's happening in the courtyard. The air is folding in on itself. Akeno. Rias acknowledged with a nod. Help Issei. He should see this. With the black-haired girl supporting him, Issei followed Rias through the hallways of the old school building. Though still weak, he found movement easier than expected. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking a courtyard where Kiba and the white-haired girl, Kaneko, Issei remembered, stood in defensive postures. In the center of the courtyard, reality itself seemed to be bending. The air rippled like heat waves above asphalt, colors inverting and distorting. A sound like glass breaking accompanied each ripple. It's happening again, Issei whispered. recognizing the phenomenon. Like when I fought the fallen angel. Rias glanced at him sharply. You created something like this. Not intentionally. It just happened. The distortion intensified, the center darkening into what appeared to be a perfectly circular hole in reality. Through it, Issei glimpsed a stone chamber filled with strange apparatus, glass vials, metal instruments, and shelves lined with books and jars containing unidentifiable specimens. A figure approached from the other side, a woman with raven black hair and striking violet eyes. She wore an elaborate black dress adorned with obsidian and silver, cut to accentuate her curvaceous figure while maintaining an air of authority. In her hand, she held a glowing crystal that pulsed with energy. Prepare yourselves, Rias ordered, crimson magic gathering around her hands. We don't know what's coming through. The woman on the other side reached the threshold of the portal. She paused, studying the opening carefully before extending her hand to touch the boundary. Ripples spread from the point of contact like a stone dropped in still water. Fascinating, the woman's voice drifted through, accented in a way Issei had never heard before. The passage is stable, unexpected, but fortunate. With graceful confidence, she stepped through the portal into the courtyard. The moment both feet touched the ground, she waved her hand and the portal collapsed behind her with a sound like a thunderclap. Hiba immediately drew a sword that hadn't been visible a moment before. Kaneko dropped into a fighting stance, while Akino's hands crackled with yellow lightning. The newcomer surveyed them with calm assessment, her gaze eventually settling on Issei. So, she said, her voice rich and melodious, you're the one who's been causing such a disturbance between the spheres. A smile curved her lips. I am Yennefer of Vengerberg, advisor to King Tancred of Temeria, member of the Lodge of Sorceresses. And you, young man, have something extremely rare flowing through your veins. Rias stepped forward, placing herself between Yennefer and Issei. I am Rias Gremory, heir to the House of Gremory. You've entered my territory without permission, through means I've never witnessed before. Explain yourself, sorceress. Yennefer's violet eyes, unnaturally vibrant, Issei now realized, shifted to Rias. Your territory, interesting. The political structures of this sphere are unfamiliar to me. She made a subtle gesture with her fingers, and the air around her shimmered briefly. You're not human, nor any non-human race I recognize. Curious. I am a devil, Rias stated firmly. And you still haven't explained your presence here. A devil. Yennefer repeated the word with academic interest. Not a concept that translates precisely to my world, I suspect. She turned her attention back to Issei. I've come because this young man is manifesting elder blood abilities, Yennefer. The most potent magical lineage known across all spheres. If untrained, his power could inadvertently trigger another conjunction, tearing apart the barriers between worlds. Issei stepped forward, shrugging off Akino's supportive arm. You're the woman from my dreams. The one who warned me. Yennefer raised an eyebrow. I assure you, I've never walked into your mind. Though someone with elder blood might have reached across dimensions to contact you. She studied him more closely. You're different than I expected. The elder blood signature is unmistakable, yet there's something ELSE mingled with it, something I've never encountered before. He's partially a devil, Rias explained reluctantly. I performed a reincarnation ritual to save his life, but his elder blood, as you call it, resisted complete transformation. Interspecies magical hybridization, Yennefer mused. Remarkable. That may explain the unique resonance I detected. She approached Issei slowly, hands raised to show she meant no harm. May I? After a hesitant nod from Issei, the sorceress placed her palm against his forehead. Her touch was cool, but energy surged between them, not invasive, but questioning. Like fingers gently testing the surface of water. Extraordinary, she whispered. The elder blood has adapted to accommodate this devil essence, creating something entirely new. She lowered her hand. You're fortunate to be alive, boy. Such a merger should have torn you apart at the molecular level. Rias frowned. You seem to know a great deal about this elder blood. What exactly is it? Yennefer considered the devil princess for a moment, apparently weighing how much to reveal. It's the bloodline of an ancient elven sage named Laradoran, who possessed the ability to manipulate time and space, to travel between worlds. The power appears rarely, manifesting fully perhaps once in a dozen generations. Her gaze returned to Issei. The last known carrier is a young woman named Cyrilla, who narrowly escaped those who would exploit her abilities. Now it seems the gift has appeared in your bloodline as well, in a world I didn't even know existed until recently. But why now? Issei asked. I've never shown any special abilities before last week. The elder blood often awakens in response to danger or at the cusp of adulthood, Yennefer explained. More concerning the timing. The barriers between spheres naturally thin in cycles spanning centuries. We're approaching such a period now, which your awakening may be accelerating. A cold weight settled in Issei's stomach. The woman in my dreams mentioned the hunt. She said they could sense me. Yennefer's expression darkened. If the wild hunt has indeed detected you, we have precious little time. They are irrelentless hunters from another sphere who seek elder blood carriers to exploit their power for interdimensional conquest. More enemies. Rias sighed. As if fallen angels weren't enough. I assure you, Yennefer said grimly. The wild hunt makes your fallen angels look like mere inconveniences by comparison. They are ancient, powerful, and utterly ruthless. The sorceress turned to address everyone present. I came here to investigate an anomaly and perhaps to retrieve the source. Now I see the situation as far more complex than anticipated. She focused on Issei again. You need try. Ning. Immediately. Before your untethered power tears open permanent rifts between worlds. And we're supposed to simply trust you. Akeno spoke for the first time, suspicion clear in her voice. Of course not, Yennefer replied with a hint of amusement. Trust should be earned, not freely given. But consider your alternatives. Do any of you understand the power this boy possesses? Can you teach him to control abilities that exist outside your sphere's magical framework? Rias exchanged glances with her peerage members. You make valid points. However, Issei is under my protection. If you wish to train him, you'll do so here. Under our supervision. Yennefer seemed to weigh her options before nodding. Acceptable, for now. Though I warn you, the hunt won't respect territorial claims or sovereign boundaries. When they come, and they will come, they'll bring chaos unlike anything your world has seen. As if summoned by her words, the temperature in the courtyard plummeted. Frost crystallized across the stone pathways, and their breath became visible in the suddenly frigid air. A distant horn sounded, impossibly far away yet somehow clear as if blown just beyond the school grounds. Yennefer's head snapped up, her eyes widening. No, she whispered, it's too soon. They couldn't possibly. The sky above darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling into a vortex. Lightning flashed within the formation. But instead of yellow-white, the bolts were an eerie blue-green. What's happening? Issei asked, his newly enhanced senses screaming danger. They've found you already, Yennefer said, urgency replacing her composed demeanor. The wild hunt has locked onto your signature. Rias's peerage formed a protective circle around Issei and their king. What do we do? Rias demanded. Yennefer's hands began weaving complex patterns, violet energy trailing from her fingertips. We prepare to fight, and pray we survive long enough for me to open an escape portal. As frost continued spreading across the courtyard, spectral riders appeared at its edges, armored figures on skeletal horses, their eyes glowing with cold blue fire. At their center rode a towering figure whose armor seemed formed from ice itself. A crown of frozen spikes adorning his helm. Eredin, Yennefer hissed. The king of the wild hunt himself has come for you, Issei Hyodo. It seems your elder blood shines more brightly than even I realized. The armored king raised his sword, pointing it directly at Issei. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The child of the elder blood belongs to us. Surrender him, and your deaths will be swift. Issei felt something rising within him, the same power that had manifested against Raynor, but stronger now, responding to the imminent threat. His veins began to glow with crimson light, visible through his skin. I belong to no one, he declared, surprising himself with his boldness. Yennefer glanced at him with newfound respect. Spoken like a true elder blood heir. But bravery alone won't save us. She turned to Rias. Devil Princess, I suggest we combine our powers. My magic alone won't hold them long. Rias nodded, crimson energy gathering around her. Everyone, battle formations. Kiba, Kaneko, front line. Akeno, prepare your strongest lightning. As the spectral riders began advancing, Issei felt the power within him building to a crescendo. The world around him seemed to slow as his perception accelerated. The woman from his dreams had said the swallow flies between worlds. Without fully understanding how he knew, Issei realized what he needed to do. Yennefer, he called, the air around him beginning to fracture with crimson energy. I can open a portal, but I need guidance. Where should I send us? The sorceress's violet eyes widened in surprise. You can't possibly have that level of control yet. Just tell me, Issei insisted as the hunt drew closer, frost spreading from their horses' hooves. Kaer Morhen, Yennefer decided quickly, the Witcher fortress in the Blue Mountains. Picture a stone castle built into a mountainside, surrounded by pine forests. Issei closed his eyes, focusing on the image Yennefer described. The power within him surged outward, no longer fighting against his will but responding to it. The air before them tore open, revealing a stone courtyard nestled between snow-capped peaks. Impossible, Yennefer breathed. Even Ciri needed months of training too. Less talking, more escaping, Rias interrupted, backing toward the portal while maintaining her shield of crimson energy. The hunt riders charged, weapons raised. Kiba met the first with his sword, moving with supernatural speed, while Kaneko literally punched a spectral horse into dissolving mist. Akeno's lightning struck 3 riders simultaneously, but more kept coming. Go, Yennefer commanded, her hands weaving complex patterns that created a barrier of violet flame between them and the hunt. I'll hold them back while you cross. Rias hesitated. We go together or not at all. A massive blast of frost magic from Eredin shattered Yennefer's barrier. The sorceress staggered backward, blood trickling from her nose. No more arguments, she gasped. The portal won't remain stable long. Issei's power is still too raw. Indeed, the edges of the portal were already beginning to flicker and distort. Rias nodded sharply to her peerage. One by one, they retreated through the opening, first Kaneko, then Kiba, followed by Akeno. Your turn, Rias told Issei, placing a hand on his shoulder. He shook his head. I need to maintain the portal from this side until everyone's through. Eredin's voice boomed across the courtyard. The child learns quickly, all the more reason he belongs to us. The Hunt King dismounted, his armored form towering over his spectral soldiers. With each step he took toward them, the temperature dropped further. Go, now, Yennefer shouted to Rias, gathering what remained of her strength for one final spell. Violet energy coalesced into a spear-like formation that she hurled at Eredin. The Hunt King batted it aside with contemptuous ease. The distraction allowed Rias to push Issei toward the portal. Both of you, go, she commanded, her own power flaring around her. Foolish devil, Eredin laughed coldly. Your kind has no concept of what you face. He raised his sword, ice magic gathering around the blade. Before he could strike, Issei felt something snap inside him, like a dam breaking. The crimson energy that had been flowing through his veins erupted outward in a shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet, hunt and allies alike. In that moment of chaos, Yennefer grabbed both Issei and Rias, pulling them toward the portal. Now, she cried. Before the backlash hits, the 3 of them tumbled through the opening just as Eredin regained his footing. The Hunt King's furious roar followed them as the portal collapsed, severing the connection between worlds. They landed hard on cold stone, the thin mountain air a shock to Issei's lungs. As consciousness began to fade, he glimpsed figures rushing toward them, a white-haired man with amber cat-like eyes, a sword drawn, an older man with a pendant similar to the amber-eyed one's, and a young woman with ashen hair and a distinctive scar across her cheek. The woman reached them first, her emerald eyes widening as she took in the scene. The last thing Issei heard before darkness claimed him was her voice, tinged with disbelief. Yennefer, what have you done? Who are these people, and why does he have elder blood like mine? Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, The Sorceress Arrives. Consciousness returned to Issei in fragments, the crackling of a hearth fire, the scent of herbs and leather. Hushed voices debating in a language he didn't recognize yet somehow understood. His body felt leaden, each limb weighted as though submerged in concrete. When he finally managed to open his eyes, the wooden ceiling above him swam in and out of focus. He's awake, came a young woman's voice, familiar yet different from Rias or Akino. A face appeared in his field of vision, striking green eyes. Ashen hair framing a features marked by a jagged scar across one cheek. Despite her obvious battle experience, she couldn't have been more than a few years older than Issei himself. "Can you understand me?" she asked, studying him with intense curiosity. Issei tried to respond, but his throat produced only a dry croak. The young woman immediately reached for a water skin, carefully supporting his head as she helped him drink. The water tasted different, mineral-rich and untreated, nothing like the processed tap water he was accustomed to. "Thank you," he managed after several grateful swallows. "Where am I?" "Kar Morhen," she replied. "The Witcher Fortress in the Blue Mountains." "I'm Ciri." The name triggered immediate recognition. "Yennefer mentioned you. You're like me, elder blood." A small smile touched Ciri's lips. "So it seems, though I've never encountered another outside my direct lineage." She sat back, giving him space. "You've caused quite the commotion. Yennefer rarely returns with unexpected guests, let alone ones who can tear holes between worlds." Memory flooded back. The wild hunt, the desperate escape, his friends. "Rias, the others, are they all right?" "Your companions are safe," Ciri assured him. "The red-haired woman, Rias, is with Yennefer and Geralt now, explaining your situation. The others are being tended to in the eastern wing." Issei attempted to sit up, wincing as his muscles protested. Ciri didn't try to stop him but offered a steadying hand. "Careful, uncontrolled dimensional travel takes a toll on the body. I should know." Her expression grew more serious. "You opened that portal without training, didn't you?" "That's remarkably dangerous." "I didn't exactly have many options," Issei replied, finally managing to prop himself against the headboard. Now he could see the room properly. Stone walls hung with faded tapestries, simple but sturdy furniture crafted from dark wood, and windows that revealed snow-covered mountain peaks beyond. "The wild hunt was coming for me." Ciri's expression darkened. "The hunt. So they've found you already." She crossed her arms, leaning against a nearby table. "Then we have less time than I hoped." For the first time, Issei noticed her attire: fitted leather breeches, a white shirt beneath a leather jerkin, and a sword belt from which hung an elegant silver blade. Though her clothing was simple, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how dangerous they could be. "You're not what I expected," Ciri remarked after a moment of mutual assessment. "What did you expect? Someone older, perhaps, or at least someone who understood what they possessed?" She tilted her head slightly. "Yennefer says you're from another world entirely, one where the elder blood has never been documented." Issei nodded, still trying to process the medieval setting around him. "Until a few days ago, I was just a normal high school student in Japan." "Japan." Ciri tested the unfamiliar word. "Your world must be very different from ours." Before Issei could elaborate, the heavy wooden door swung open. A white-haired man with unusual amber eyes entered. His movements fluid and predatory despite his muscular build. A silver medallion in the shape of a wolf's head hung from his neck, and two swords were strapped to his back. Scars crisscrossed his visible skin, telling stories of countless battles survived. "So our visitors finally rejoined the land of the living," the man said, his voice a gravelly rumble. Ciri smiled. "Perfect timing as always, Geralt." "Issei. This is Geralt of Rivia, my father in all the ways that matter." "The Witcher Yennefer mentioned," Issei said, recognizing the medallion from the sorceress's description. Geralt approached. Those unusual eyes, with vertical pupils like a cat's, studying Issei with clinical precision. Doesn't look like much, but neither did you at first, Ciri." A hint of a smile softened his scarred features. "Yennefer says you've got elder blood mixed with something called devil essence. Care to explain what that means?" Issei hesitated, unsure where to begin. "It's complicated. In my world, there are devils, angels, fallen angels, supernatural beings with their own powers and politics. A devil named Rias saved my life by partially turning me into one of her kind, but my elder blood resisted the transformation. Mixing magical systems is dangerous," Geralt observed. "Usually fatal." "So I've been told," Issei replied. "Honestly, I'm still trying to understand it myself. A week ago, my biggest concern was passing my math exams." Geralt grunted. "Well, your education's taking a different direction now. He turned to Ciri. Vesemir wants everyone in the main hall. Red-haired devils explained some things that raise more questions than answers. Ciri nodded, then addressed Issei. Can you walk, or do you need help? Testing his limbs, Issei found the weakness receding. I think I can manage. But I wouldn't mind having someone to lean on if I need it. As they made their way through the stone corridors of Kaer Morhen, Issei marveled at the ancient fortress. Unlike the perfectly maintained historical buildings in Japan, this place wore its age proudly. Weathered stones, worn steps, and the occasional crumbling wall testified to centuries of endurance against time and siege. How old is this place? He asked, steadying himself against a wall during a momentary wave of dizziness. Over 3 centuries, Geralt answered. Used to be the training grow. For the school of the wolf, witchers like me. Not many of us left now. Witchers? Issei inquired. Yennefer mentioned the term, but I don't understand what it means. Geralt exchanged a glance with Ciri before responding. Humans modified through alchemy and magic to hunt monsters. Enhanced strength, reflexes, longevity. Limited magic called signs. Mutations that let us see in the dark, track by scent. That's why your eyes are different, Issei realized. One of many changes, Geralt confirmed without elaboration. They emerged into a massive hall dominated by a long wooden table. A fire roared in a hearth large enough for Issei to stand in. Around the table sat the others, Rias and her peerage on one side, Yennefer and an older white-haired man on the other. All conversation ceased as they entered. Rias immediately rose, relief evident on her face. Issei, thank goodness you're all right. Akino, Kiba, and even the usually stoic Kaneko showed similar relief. Issei felt a surge of warmth at their concern. Despite knowing them for only a short time, they'd risked their lives to protect him. I'm fine, he assured them, taking the empty seat beside Rias. Just tired. The older man at the head of the table cleared his throat. Now that everyone's present, we can continue. I am Vesemir, master of Kaer Morhen and the oldest living witcher. His weathered face bore even more scars than Geralt's. Yet his eyes remained sharp and alert. Your arrival presents us with an unusual situation. Yennefer, seated beside the older witcher, nodded. As I was explaining, the convergence of magical systems from different spheres could have catastrophic consequences. The fact that Issei survived a partial devil transformation while possessing elder blood defies all magical theory. Perhaps in your world, Rias countered politely. Devil reincarnation magic is specifically designed to adapt to various beings. Yet you admitted the process only partially succeeded, Yennefer pointed out. His elder blood resisted, creating a hybrid state unprecedented in either of our worlds. Issei glanced between the two powerful women, sensing the subtle power struggle beneath their civil exchange. Both were used to authority, neither willing to cede ground easily. Vesemir raised a hand. Let's focus on practicalities. The Wild Hunt has tracked the boy across worlds, meaning none of us is safe while he remains untrained. He fixed Issei with a penetrating gaze. You opened a portal without instruction, purely on instinct. Impressive, but dangerous, to yourself and everyone around you. I didn't exactly have a choice, Issei defended himself. It was either try something or let the hunt take me. No one's blaming you, Ciri interjected from her position leaning against the hearth. I did the same when my power first manifested. Jumped between worlds without control or direction. Nearly got myself killed countless times before I learned proper techniques. Yennefer nodded, which is why immediate training is essential. The elder blood allows for dimensional travel, but without discipline, it can tear reality apart. Combined with your devil abilities, the NTIAL for disaster multiplies exponentially. Kiba spoke up for the first time. If I may, our world has its own magical systems and training methods. Wouldn't it make more sense to return home and develop Issei's abilities there? Impossible for the moment, Yennefer replied. The hunt has locked onto Issei's signature. Any dimensional rift he creates would draw them immediately. Here, at least, we have protections against their scrying and limited means to repel them if they attack. So we're stuck here? Akino asked, her usual teasing tone absent. Until Issei learns to control his abilities and mask his signature while traveling, Yennefer confirmed. Or until we find another way to shield him from the hunt's detection. Rias folded her hands on the table, her regal bearing undiminished by the rustic surroundings. Then it seems we have no choice but to accept your hospitality, Vesemir-san. We're grateful for your protection. The old witcher nodded, a hint of amusement in his eyes at the formal address. Just Vesemir will do. Formalities mean little in these mountains. What exactly is this wild hunt? Kaneko asked quietly. Why do they want Issei? Geralt answered, his voice grim. Spectral riders from another world. Led by Eredin Briok Glass, a powerful Ain-El elf. They travel between worlds, taking slaves and pursuing sources of power. His gaze shifted to Ciri. They hunted Ciri for years, seeking to harness her elder blood abilities to enable mass invasion of other worlds. They can't cross dimensions easily on their own, Ciri elaborated. They need someone with elder blood to create stable passages for their armies. But why now? Issei questioned. If I've always had this blood, why did they only start coming after me recently? Elder blood abilities typically awaken during adolescence, Yennefer explained. Before that, the power lies dormant, undetectable. Something triggered your awakening. Perhaps stress, danger, or simply maturation. Issei recalled the recurring dreams that had preceded his awakening. I've been having strange dreams for weeks. A forest, a woman warning me about the hunt. Ciri straightened at this. What woman? What did she look like? I never saw her clearly. Just her eyes, green, like yours actually. She said something about a swallow flying between worlds. An uneasy silence fell over the Witchers and Yennefer. Ciri and Geralt exchanged meaningful glances. Swallow. Zirael in elder speech, Ciri finally said. It's my name, my true name. And I've never walked into your mind. Perhaps not consciously, Yennefer mused. But elder blood carriers share connections that transcend conventional understanding. You may have sensed another awakening across the barriers between spheres. Vesemir stood, his movement breaking the tension. Speculation can wait. Night approaches, and even Kaer Morhen isn't immune to dangers after dark. You'll all need rest before training begins tomorrow. He gestured to Geralt. Show our guests to the eastern wing. The rooms are prepared. As they dispersed, Issei found himself walking alongside Ciri, trailing behind Geralt who led the others. How long did it take you? Issei asked quietly. To control your abilities, I mean. Ciri considered the question. Years, if I'm honest. But my circumstances were different. Constantly running, no consistent teachers. She studied him thoughtfully. You have something I didn't. Stability and multiple mentors. Between Yennefer's knowledge of magical theory, my practical experience with elder blood, and your devil friend's understanding of your world's power systems, you might progress faster. I hope so, Issei replied, glancing back at Rias who was engaged in quiet conversation with Akino. I don't want to put anyone else in danger because of me. Ciri's expression softened slightly. That's a good instinct, but don't carry it too far. I spent years blaming myself for everyone who suffered helping me. It doesn't help you or them. Before Issei could respond, they reached the guest quarters. Geralt indicated various doors along the corridor. Not exactly luxury accommodations, the Witcher said. But the beds are clean and the walls keep out most of the cold. Bathing chambers at the end of the hall. We've heated water, but use it sparingly. Winter in the mountains makes every resource precious. After ensuring everyone was settled, Geralt departed with Ciri, leaving the travelers from another world to adjust to their medieval surroundings. Issei sat heavily on the edge of his assigned bed, a simple wooden frame with a straw mattress covered by wool blankets. The room contained only basic furnishings, a small table with a candle, a wooden chair, and a chest for belongings he didn't have. A soft knock at his door preceded Rias's entrance. In the candlelight, her crimson hair seemed to glow like embers. How are you feeling? She asked, taking the room's sole chair. Overwhelmed, Issei admitted. A week ago I was just a normal high school student. Now I'm part devil, part, whatever elder blood makes me, trapped in a medieval fortress in another world with skeleton ghost riders hunting me. A small smile touched Rias's lips. When you put it that way, it does sound rather extraordinary. Her expression grew more serious. I want you to know that my peerage and I are here by choice. We'll help you through this, Issei. But your responsibilities in the underworld, your family, can wait, she finished firmly. As the heir to House Gremory, I have certain discretionary powers. Besides, interdimensional threats like the Wild Hunt potentially endanger all realms, including the underworld. My brother will understand once I can contact him. Issei nodded, grateful for her support yet troubled by the burden his existence placed on others. What do you think of them? Yennefer, Geralt, the others. Rias considered the question carefully. They're formidable in their own ways. Different from supernatural beings in our world, their power feels more grounded, somehow. Less conceptual, more tied to the physical world. She brushed a strand of hair from her face. Yennefer is clearly brilliant, if somewhat condescending. The Witchers are fascinating, humans modified through alchemy rather than reincarnated through magic. And Ciri seems to be the only one who truly understands what I'm going through, Issei finished. Yes, Rias acknowledged. Her connection to you through this elder blood creates a bond none of us can fully comprehend. A hint of something, perhaps concern, perhaps something else, flickered across her features. You should rest now. Tomorrow will likely be challenging. As she rose to leave, Issei impulsively reached for her hand. Thank you, Rias, for everything. Surprise registered in her turquoise eyes, followed by genuine warmth. You're one of mine now, Issei. Never forget that. She squeezed his hand gently before departing. Sleep came surprisingly easily despite the unfamiliar surroundings. This time, his dreams were mercifully ordinary, containing neither prophetic warnings nor interdimensional visions. Morning arrived with the scent of wood smoke, roasting meat, and the distant sound of steel striking steel. Issei woke feeling more refreshed than he'd expected, the lingering weakness from dimensional travel largely faded. After navigating the promised bathing chamber, a stone room with large wooden tubs and water heated by channeling it through stones from the fire, Issei followed. The sounds of activity to an inner courtyard. The scene that greeted him momentarily halted him in his tracks. Kiba and Geralt circled each other in the center of the snow-dusted courtyard, swords in hand. The Witcher wielded a plain steel blade with effortless precision, while Kiba's sword gleamed with an inner light that suggested magical properties. Interesting technique, Geralt commented, as he parried one of Kiba's lightning-fast strikes. Never seen sword work quite like that. Kiba smiled, not even breathing hard despite the pace of their exchange. Knight-class devils specialize in sword combat and speed. Your style is fascinating as well, efficient, no wasted movement. When fighting monsters, hesitation means death, Geralt replied, suddenly changing rhythm to launch a esser. Ease of strikes that forced Kiba backward. Fancy flourishes get you killed. From the sidelines, Vesemir called out corrections to both combatants. Nearby, Kaneko observed silently while munching on what appeared to be dried meat. Upon noticing Issei, she offered a slight nod. They've been at it since dawn, she informed him in her characteristic monotone. The Witcher is good, different from knights, but good. Where are the others? Issei asked, accepting a piece of the jerky she offered. Akeno is with Yennefer learning about this world's magic. Bushu is in the library with Ciri, researching elder blood. As if summoned by mention of her name, Ciri emerged from a side entrance, now dressed in more practical training attire. Her ashen hair was tied back, revealing the full extent of her facial scar. Good, you're awake, she said, approaching Issei. Yennefer wants to begin your assessment immediately. We need to establish a baseline for your abilities. Assessment. What kind of assessment? A slight smirk touched Ciri's lips. The kind that will probably leave you exhausted and possibly in mild pain. Magical training isn't gentle, especially with Yennefer as instructor. She led him to another courtyard. This one smaller and more sheltered from the wind. Symbols had been drawn in the snow-cleared ground, complex geometric patterns that seemed to shift if he looked at them too directly. Yennefer stood at the center, deep in conversation with Akeno. Both women turned as Issei approached. Finally, Yennefer said, "We've wasted enough daylight. Come, stand here." She indicated the center of the largest symbol. Akeno offered an encouraging smile. "Good luck, Issei-kun. The sorceress has fascinating methods." As Akeno departed, Issei cautiously entered the inscribed circle. "What exactly are we doing?" Measuring your magical capacity and identifying your natural affinities, Yennefer explained, circling him with critical assessment. Ciri will assist, as her elder blood gives her insight into your condition that I lack. Ciri took position at one point of the complex diagram. The process isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. Your dual nature makes conventional testing unreliable. Yennefer produced a crystal similar to the one she'd used to create the portal to this world. Hold this and focus on channeling your energy into it, not forcing. Just allowing your power to flow naturally. The crystal felt cool against Issei's palm, its faceted surface catching the winter light. He closed his eyes, trying to sense the energy within himself that had manifested during moments of crisis. Relax, Ciri coached. Don't chase the power. Let it find you. Issei took a deep breath, clearing his mind as best he could. At first, nothing happened. Then, gradually, he became aware of two distinct sensations within his core, a crimson warmth that felt somehow ancestral, ancient beyond comprehension, and a darker, more volatile energy that must be his devil essence. Good, Yennefer murmured, her voice seemingly distant despite her proximity. Now let that energy extend into the crystal. Don't direct it, simply remove the barriers between yourself and the focus object. As Issei complied, the crystal in his hand began to warm. Behind his closed eyelids, he sensed rather than saw it beginning to glow, first with the red-black energy of his devil powers. Then with the deeper crimson of the elder blood. Fascinating, Yennefer commented. The energies aren't blending but coexisting in parallel channels. Like oil and water in the same vessel, Ciri added. Occupying the same space without truly mixing. Open your eyes, Issei, Yennefer instructed. But maintain your focus on the crystal. When Issei complied, he gasped. The crystal now pulsed with swirling energies, crimson and black intertwining but never merging. More startling were the symbols floating in the air around him, glowing sigils that seemed to write themselves from pure light. What are those? He asked, careful not to break his concentration. Magical diagnostics, Yennefer explained, studying the symbols intently. They reveal your potential pathways and natural affinities. Her expression grew increasingly intrigued. Your elder blood is potentially as strong as Ciri's, possibly stronger due to how it's adapted to coexist with your devil essence. Ciri moved closer, examining the floating sigils. There's something different in the pattern, though. See how these symbols cluster. My diagnostics showed a linear progression. Yennefer nodded. Quote, because his elder blood activated after his devil transformation, it's developed along different channels. She circled Issei, observing from various angles. The devil essence provides a foundation hats allowing the elder blood to manifest more efficiently. Is that good or bad? Issei asked, struggling to maintain his concentration as the crystal grew warmer. Neither. Simply different, Yennefer replied. It means your training must be customized. Traditional elder blood techniques will need adaptation. Without warning, one of the floating symbols flared brightly before shooting into the crystal. The stone grew suddenly hot, forcing Issei to drop it. Instead of falling, it remained suspended in midair, spinning rapidly as its glow intensified. What's happening? He asked, stepping back instinctively. Alarm flashed across Yennefer's face. The energies are resonating unexpectedly. Ciri, stabilize the outer ring. Ciri immediately moved to the edge of the inscribed circle, her hands glowing with power as she reinforced the boundary. The patterns destabilizing. The crystal's rotation accelerated, the separate energies within it beginning to spiral together. Yennefer rapidly cast a containment spell. Violet energy surrounding the increasingly volatile focus stone. Your energies are attempting to merge, she explained tensely. If they succeed without proper stabilization, the resulting release could tear open multiple dimensional rifts simultaneously. How do I stop it? Issei asked, feeling the power building within the crystal pulling at his own reserves. Reassert separation, Ciri called. Visualize the energies as distinct entities that must remain apart. Issei concentrated, picturing the crimson elder blood and the darker devil essence as separate streams flowing through his body. The crystal's rotation slowed slightly, but the spiraling energies continued their gradual convergence. It's not enough, Yennefer stated grimly. The resonance is too strong. She turned to Ciri. We need a channel, somewhere for the excess energy to discharge safely. Understanding immediately, Ciri extended her hand toward the crystal. Through me. My elder blood can absorb the overflow. Too dangerous, Yennefer countered. The devil essence is unpredictable. We don't have time to debate. Ciri interrupted, already positioning herself between Issei and the increasingly unstable crystal. Instinctively, Issei reached out, not physically but with his awareness, trying to reclaim control of the runaway energies. As his consciousness touched the maelstrom within the crystal, something unexpected happened. Rather than pulling the energies back, he found himself able to direct their flow. Wait, he called, I think I can guide it. Follow. Wing intuition he didn't fully understand, Issei mentally pushed the swirling energies upward. The crystal shot toward the sky, trailing light like a comet. 30 feet above the courtyard, it detonated in a spectacular display, a sphere of crimson and black energy that expanded outward before collapsing back into itself and vanishing with a sound like distant thunder. Silence fell over the courtyard. Snow began to fall again, delicate flakes drifting through the space where the energy discharge had occurred. Well, Yennefer finally said, brushing ice crystals from her sleeve, that was enlightening. If somewhat more dramatic than intended. Ciri approached Issei, studying him with newfound interest. You redirected the energies. That shouldn't have been possible without training. I didn't really think about it, Issei admitted, suddenly feeling drained. It just seemed like the right thing to do. Instinctive control, Yennefer mused. Unusual, but not unprecedented with elder blood carriers. She gave him an appraising look. Your devil essence appears to provide a framework that allows for greater initial control, though less raw power than pure elder blood. From the entrance to the courtyard came slow, deliberate applause. They turned to find Geralt leaning against the stone archway, amusement evident in his cat-like eyes. Impressive light show, the Witcher commented. Visible all the way from the main training yard. A minor miscalculation, Yennefer replied coolly. The boy's energy signature is more complex than anticipated. Geralt grunted. Miscalculation or not, you've attracted attention. Vesemir spotted riders in the valley. Not the hunt, but they're heading this way. Alarm flashed across Yennefer's features. Who? Can't be sure at this distance. Could be local militia, could be Nilfgaardian scouts. His expression grew more serious. Either way, that magical discharge was visible for miles. If they report it, others will come investigating. Ciri turned to Issei. This is why control is essential. In this world, displays of power attract dangerous attention, whether from witch hunters, rival mages, or political factions. I didn't mean to. Intentions matter little in the face of consequences, Yennefer interrupted, though her tone lacked true harshness. Consider this your first practical lesson. She turned to Geralt. How long until they reach the pass? Hour. Maybe less depending on how determined they are. Snow's picking up. Might slow them down. Yennefer nodded. Time enough to prepare, then. Ciri, continue. With Issei's basic exercises, nothing that would create visible effects. Geralt, inform Vesemir and prepare the standard discouragements for unwanted visitors. As Geralt departed, Issei asked, discouragements? A small, somewhat predatory smile curved Ciri's lips. Kaer Morhen has many ways of persuading travelers that the fortress is haunted, dangerous, or simply not worth the effort to reach. Most are effective without causing permanent harm. Most, Issei echoed uneasily. Those who persist despite warnings sometimes require more definitive discouragement, Yennefer stated matter-of-factly. But that's a last resort. Now, back to your training, this time with an emphasis on containment rather than expression. While Issei trained with Ciri in a more secluded inner courtyard, Rias found herself in Kaer Morhen's vast library. Unlike the meticulously organized libraries of the underworld, this collection spoke of centuries of practical use, books shelved by subject rather than system. Margins filled with annotations from generations of witchers, and the occasional bloodstain testifying to research conducted in desperate circumstances. Your world's concept of devils differs significantly from ours, Rias observed, examining an illustrated bestiary. Here they seem to be malevolent spirits or demons rather than a distinct species with their own civilization. Vesemir, who had been assisting her research, nodded. Terminology varies between worlds. What you call devils would likely be categorized differently here. The old witcher carefully turned the page of an ancient tome. Though I must admit, in my many decades studying monsters and the supernatural, I've never encountered beings quite like you and your peerage. We're hardly the strangest beings in our world. Rias replied with a small smile. Angels, gods from various pantheons, dragons, yokai, our reality hosts countless supernatural species. Yet you maintain a human appearance, Vesemir noted. As that choice or necessity? Quote, most higher devils can alter their form, though we typically maintain human appearance for convenience. Rias demonstrated by briefly allowing her leathery bat-like wings to manifest before retracting them. Full transformation is generally reserved for combat or formal occasions. Vesemir's weathered face revealed only scholarly interest. Fascinating. Self-determined polymorphism without potions or mutagens. Their research was interrupted by Akino's arrival, the black-haired beauty carrying several scrolls. Bushu, I've found something interesting in the accounts of the first conjunction of spheres, she reported, setting the scrolls on the table. According to these records, when worlds aligned 1500 years ago, creatures and people were pulled between dimensions involuntarily. The Great Conjunction, Vesemir confirmed. When monsters first came to our world, along with humans. Before that, only elves and dwarves inhabited these lands. Rias examined the illustrated scroll, which depicted celestial bodies aligning while creatures passed between them. So this has happened before, worlds connecting, beings crossing between them. On a much larger scale, Vesemir clarified, the barriers between all worlds weakened simultaneously, causing mass displacement across multiple spheres. And now it's beginning again, came Yennefer's voice from the library entrance. The sorceress approached, her violet eyes immediately drawn to the ancient scroll. Though this time, it's being accelerated by Issei's uncontrolled manifestations. Rias straightened, meeting Yennefer's gaze directly. How is his training progressing? Unpredictably, the sorceress admitted, taking a seat across from them. His dual nature creates complications I hadn't anticipated. The elder blood and devil essence remain distinct yet interdependent. Accessing one inevitably activates the other. Is that dangerous? Akino asked, concern evident in her voice. Potentially, Yennefer replied. We had a minor incident during initial assessment. Nothing catastrophic, but it highlighted the need for specialized training techniques. Vesemir gave Yennefer a knowing look. That minor incident wouldn't happen to be the explosion of light that rattled every window in the fortress, would it? Yennefer waved a dismissive hand. A simple energy discharge, perfectly controlled, if somewhat more visually dramatic than intended, and perfectly visible to the riders Geralt spotted in the valley, the old witcher countered. Your controlled disc, Harj, may have invited unwanted attention. Rias frowned. Riders, not the Wild Hunt. No. Likely local militia or Nilfgaardian scouts, Yennefer explained. But any investigation into magical phenomena could eventually attract more dangerous attention. The political situation in this world seems quite complex, Akino observed. Vesemir gave a humorless chuckle. That's one way of putting it. 3 major powers competing for dominance, smaller kingdoms struggling to maintain independence, non-humans facing persecution, and magic users viewed with suspicion by all sides. Not entirely unlike home, Rias mused. Though the scale differs, Yennefer studied the Devil Princess with newfound interest. You navigate political complexities in your world. As heir to one of the 72 pillars. Diplomacy is as much a part of my education as magical theory, Rias confirmed. The fragile peace between angels, fallen angels, and devils requires constant attention. Perhaps you have insights that might prove useful here, Yennefer suggested. If we must interact with local authorities, a fresh perspective could be valuable. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Kiba, his normally pristine appearance somewhat disheveled from training. Bushu, he addressed Rias, Geralt-san suggests we all remain inside until the visitors are dealt with. He and Ciri-san have gone to intercept them in the lower pass. And Issei? Rias inquired. With Kaneko in the East Tower. She's helping him practice controlling his energy output. Yennefer raised an eyebrow. The small one. What qualifies her to assist with magical training? Kaneko excels at precise control of physical and magical energy, Rias explained. As a rook, her specialty is strength and endurance, but her Nekomata heritage gives her unique sensitivity to energy flows. Nekomata. Vesemir repeated. Not a term I'm familiar with. A yokai. Supernatural being, with feline characteristics, Akeno elaborated. Though Kaneko rarely displays her full abilities. Vesemir's expression grew thoughtful. Reminds me somewhat of werecat subspecies, though your description suggests different origins. He turned to Yennefer. What's your assessment of our visitor's intentions? The sorceress sighed. Impossible to say without knowing who they are. If they're simply local militia investigating strange lights, Geralt's discouragements should suffice. If they're Nilfgaardian intelligence seeking magical practitioners. She left the implication hanging. Would it not be simpler to simply meet with them? Rias suggested. Establish a diplomatic dialogue rather than arousing suspicion through avoidance. Yennefer and Vesemir exchanged glances. You don't understand the political climate here, Yennefer finally said. Mages are being hunted across the northern kingdoms. Nilfgaard tolerates magic only when strictly controlled by their imperial authority. Unknown practitioners, especially foreign ones, would be detained at best. Executed at worst. Then perhaps we should prepare for less diplomatic alternatives, Akeno suggested, lightning briefly dancing between her fingertips. Vesemir raised a cautionary hand. Let's not escalate unnecessarily. Geralt is experienced at handling unwanted visitors without bloodshed. A tense silence fell over the library as they awaited news from the pass below. In the eastern tower, Issei sat cross-legged opposite Kaneko, who had insisted on an impromptu training session after Ciri had been called away. Focus, the petite girl instructed, her golden eyes intent. Imagine your power as water in a cup. Too much movement, it spills. Too still, it stagnates. Issei closed his eyes, trying to follow her guidance. The metaphor helped. He could almost visualize the dual energies within him as different colored liquids in the same vessel. How do you know so much about this? He asked, maintaining his concentration. Key control is fundamental for yokai, Kaneko replied simply. Power without control is dangerous. She demonstrated by forming a tiny ball of white energy above her palm, then compressing it until it was barely visible yet radiated intense presence. Maximum effect, minimum display, she explained. This conserves energy and prevents detection. Issei attempted to replicate the exercise, drawing on the smallest amount of power he could manage. A crimson spark appeared above his hand, wobbling unsteadily. Better, Kaneko acknowledged, but still leaking. Your aura extends 3 feet around you. Needs to be contained within inches. It's harder with 2 different types of energy, Issei explained, frustrated. They want to move in different patterns. Kaneko considered this. Then don't force same pattern. Find harmony between different movements. She demonstrated with her hands, making 2 circular motions that complemented rather than mirrored each other. Like dance partners, not soldiers marching. The analogy clicked. Issei visualized his devil energy and elder blood as dancers moving to the same music but with different steps. Gradually, the erratic spark above his palm stabilized, compres. Sing into a tiny crimson star with black swirls. Good, Kaneko nodded approvingly. Now maintain while I test. Without warning, she flicked his forehead. The sudden contact nearly broke his concentration. The energy sphere wavering dangerously before he reasserted control. Hey, a little warning next time. Enemies don't give warnings, she stated matter-of-factly. Control must be maintained under stress. Their training was interrupted by a commotion from below. Moving to the window, they observed several figures approaching the main gate, Geralt and Ciri returning, accompanied by Thr. Riders in distinctive armor with black sun emblems on their shields. Nilfgaardians, Kaneko identified, her enhanced senses having overheard earlier conversations. Not good. Issei let his energy construct dissipate. Joining her at the window. I thought they were going to turn them away. Changed plans, Kaneko observed. We should join others. By the time they reached the main hall, the visitors had been escorted inside. 3 men in black armor stood near the entrance, their posture military and alert despite the ostensibly peaceful nature of their visit. Their leader, Distinguise, head by additional silver accents on his armor, surveyed the room with calculated interest. Geralt stood nearby, his expression neutral but body language suggesting readiness for trouble. Ciri had positioned herself slightly behind the visitors, blocking the most direct route to the exit. Vesemir entered from a side door, followed by Yennefer, Rias, Akino, and Kiba. The old witcher approached the Nilfgaardian officer with the confidence of one accustomed to dangerous negotiations. "Captain," he greeted formally. "Welcome to Kaer Morhen. Though I must admit, we rarely receive Imperial visitors this far north." The officer removed his helmet, revealing a sharp-featured face with a neatly trimmed beard. "Master Vesemir, I presume. I am Captain Voris of the Imperial Intelligence Division. We observed unusual magical activity in this region, activity inconsistent with known Witcher signs." His gaze swept the room, lingering momentarily on Rias and her peerage before settling on Yennefer. "Lady Yennefer, your presence explains much. The Emperor will be interested to learn you've returned to the north." "My movements are my own concern, Captain," Yennefer replied coolly. "And Kaer Morhen remains neutral territory by Imperial decree. Neutrality extends to Witchers, not to unlicensed magical practitioners," Voris countered smoothly. "Particularly when they engage in activities visible for miles." Issei felt a chill at the realization that his training accident had indeed drawn exactly the wrong kind of attention. Vesemir stepped forward. "Any magical activities at Kaer Morhen fall under my authority as master of this fortress. If your concern is unauthorized sorcery, I assure you everything is sanctioned." "By whose authority?" Voris pressed. "The Emperor has established clear protocols for magical research and training. Lady Yennefer is well aware of these regulations." Rias stepped forward, her regal bearing drawing immediate attention. "Perhaps I can clarify the situation, Captain. I am Rias Gremory, visiting diplomat from the eastern territories beyond the Blue Mountains." Lady Yennefer was kind enough to demonstrate certain magical principles relevant to our diplomatic discussions. The smoothness of the lie impressed Issei. Rias continued without hesitation. "My delegation and I are conducting preliminary cultural exchanges to assess potential trade relations. As our regions have different magical traditions, some comparative demonstrations were necessary." Captain Voris's expression revealed skepticism. "I've received no reports of Aya's turn diplomatic missions crossing Imperial borders." "That's because we didn't cross Imperial borders," Geralt interjected. "They came through the mountain passes, avoiding populated areas specifically to prevent misunderstandings before official contact could be established." The captain's gaze shifted to Issei and the others. "And these individuals are part of your delegation?" "My personal guard and advisors," Rias confirmed, maintaining perfect composure. "Given the dangerous nature of the mountain crossing, I wouldn't travel without protection." For a tense moment, the captain seemed to weigh his options. Finally, he offered a stiff bow to Rias. "The Empire welcomes potential diplomatic and trade relationships. However, protocol requires that I report your presence to my superiors. The Emperor may wish to extend a formal invitation to Nilfgaard." "We would be honored," Rias replied diplomatically, "once our preliminary assessments are complete. For now, we prefer to maintain in a low profile until formal announcements are appropriate." Unfortunately, that magical display eliminated any chance of maintaining a low profile, Voris observed. "My patrol wasn't the only one to notice. News travels quickly, even in these mountains." Yennefer stepped forward. "What exactly are you implying, Captain?" "Merely that others less diplomatically inclined may investigate. Itch hunters have been active in these regions, and they rarely bother with questions before acting." His tone suggested this wasn't merely an observation but a veiled warning. Vesemir nodded gravely. "We appreciate the information, Captain. Rest assured, future magical activities will be conducted with greater discretion." After a few more minutes of tense conversation, the captain and his men were escorted back to the gate by Geralt. Once they were safely out of earshot, Yennefer turned to Rias with newfound respect. "Quick thinking," she acknowledged. "Though I'm not sure they entirely believed the diplomatic mission story." "They didn't," Ciri confirmed, rejoining the group. "But it gave them a plausible explanation to report rather than admitting they couldn't determine what's happening here." "The captain seemed more interested in you, Yennefer," Vesemir noted. "Your history with Nilfgaard remains a complication." The sorceress waved a dismissive hand. "Emhyr's interest in my whereabouts is nothing new. What concerns me is the mention of witch hunters. If they come investigating, they won't be satisfied with diplomatic excuses." Issei stepped forward. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. The energy discharged during training." No point assigning blame, Geralt stated, returning from the gate. Damage is done. Now we adapt. He turned to Vesemir. They'll report back by nightfall. We should expect more visitors within days, either Imperial agents with more pointed questions or witch hunters looking for trophies. Then we accelerate Issei's training, Yennefer decided. Focus on control and concealment rather than power expression. Ciri nodded in agreement. I can teach him the techniques I developed while hiding from the hunt. Different application, but the principles are similar. What about us? Kiba asked. Should we maintain this diplomatic delegation pretense? For now, yes, Rias answered. It provides a convenient explanation for our presence and unusual appearances. Vesemir stroked his beard thoughtfully. We should also prepare contingencies. If Imperial forces or witch hunters arrive in greater numbers, Kaer Morhen could become a battlefield, something I'd prefer to avoid. We could relocate, Yennefer suggested. There are places with stronger magical protections than even this fortress. Moving risks exposure during transit, Geralt countered. Better to fortify here and prepare emergency extraction plans if needed. Issei listened to the discussion with growing unease. Once again, his existence was putting others at risk. He thought of Kaer Morhen. This ancient stronghold that had stood for centuries, becoming a battlefield because of him was unbearable. What if I surrendered myself to this emperor? He suggested suddenly. If I'm the one they're ultimately interested in. Absolutely not, Rias interrupted firmly. Out of the question, Yennefer agreed, rare solidarity forming between the two powerful women. Hyr var Emrace would immediately recognize your elder blood for what it is. You'd become either a political hostage or a research subject, neither fate being particularly pleasant. Besides, Ciri added, a dark edge to her voice. I've experienced the Emperor's hospitality firsthand. Trust me when I say it's not an option worth considering. Something in her tone suggested personal history that Issei didn't feel right asking about. Instead, he nodded reluctantly. So what do we do? We train, Geralt stated simply. We prepare, and we remain vigilant. The Witcher turned to Vesemir. The old tunnel system should be cleared, just in case. The Master Witcher nodded. I'll see to it. Kiba, your speed would be useful in helping secure the escape routes. As the group dispersed to their various preparations, Issei found himself walking alongside Ciri toward the training yard. This emperor, he ventured cautiously, he's the one who sent those soldiers. Ciri's expression hardened slightly. Captain Vorus and his men are merely the eyes and ears. Hyr var Emrace rarely dirties his hands directly. She glanced at Issei. He's also my biological father, though that's not common knowledge. Issei nearly stumbled in surprise. Your father, but you don't seem fond of him. Ciri finished with a bitter smile. Our relationship is complicated. He spent years hunting me, not out of paternal concern but because my elder blood was valuable to his political ambitions. That's terrible, Issei said, genuinely horrified. Politics in this world rarely accounts for sentiment, she replied matter-of-factly. Which is why we must accelerate your training. The sooner you can control your abilities, the sooner you can return to your world, and the safer everyone will be. For the next 3 days, Issei's training intensified to brutal levels. Mornings began with physical conditioning under Geralt's supervision, climbing the crumbling walls of Kaer Morhen, running through snow-filled mountain paths. And basic combat drills that left Issei's muscles screaming in protest. Elder blood means nothing if your body fails you, the Witcher explained during one particularly grueling session. Dimensional travel taxes physical reserves as much as magical ones. Afternoons were dedicated to magical theory with Yennefer and practical application with Ciri. The Orceres proved a demanding but insightful instructor, breaking down the complex interactions between Issei's dual nature with clinical precision. Your devil essence provides structure while the elder blood supplies raw power. She explained, illustrating with magical diagrams that hovered in the air between them. The challenge is maintaining the boundary between them while drawing on both simultaneously. Ciri's lessons were more intuitive, focusing on the sensations and mental techniques required for controlled dimensional manipulation. Feel the threads between worlds, she instructed as they sat in meditation. Don't try to see them, vision is too limiting. Sense the points where reality thins, where passages might form naturally. By evening, Issei would collapse into exhausted sleep, only to repeat the cycle the following day. Throughout it all, Rias and her peerage continued their own activities, Akeno studying this world's magical traditions with Yennefer, Kiba training wit. Geralt and exploring the fortress's defenses, Kaneko often disappearing for hours before returning with detailed information about the surrounding wilderness. On the fourth evening, Issei found Rias alone in the library, studying maps of the continent with focused attention. Planning escape routes, he asked, taking a seat across from her. She looked up, offering a small smile. Contingency planning. This world's geography is fascinating, so different from our own. Issei nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Rias, I've been thinking, if things get worse, if the wild hunt returns or these witch hunters become a real threat, you and the others should return home without me. Rias set aside her maps, fixing him with a serious gaze. That's not how this works, Issei. We came together, we'll leave together, but I'm the one they want. There's no reason for all of you to be in danger because of me. There's every reason, she countered firmly. You're part of my peerage, even if the transformation was incomplete. More than that, you're. She hesitated, something vulnerable flickering across her features before her composure returned. You're important to us, to me. The simple statement carried weight beyond the words themselves. Before Issei could respond, the library door opened to admit Ciri, her expression unusually grave. Sorry to interrupt, she said, though her tone suggested the matter was urgent. Geralt's returned from scouting. We have a situation. They followed her to the main hall where the others had already gathered. Geralt stood near the hearth, snow still melting from his leather armor. His expression was grim. Witch hunters, he announced without preamble. A large party moving through the valley. At least 20, well-armed and with specialty equipment for dealing with magic users. How long? Vesemir asked. 2 days at most. They're moving carefully, setting up wards as they advance. Yennefer's expression darkened. Wards against what, specifically? Portal formation, magical concealment, illusions, the standard countermeasures. Geralt's cat-like eyes shifted to Issei. They're also carrying demeritium shackles and bombs, equipment designed to suppress magical abilities. They're prepared for resistance, Vesemir concluded. This isn't a casual investigation. No, Geralt agreed. Someone sent them specifically to find whatever caused that magical discharge. Rias stepped forward. Could we not simply leave before they arrive? Between Issei's developing abilities and Yennefer's expertise, surely we could create a portal to somewhere safer. Ordinarily, yes, Yennefer replied. But those anti-portal wards complicate matters. Breaking through them would create another magical signature, potentially drawing even more attention. What about conventional travel? Kiba suggested. Horses, mountain paths. Vesemir shook his head. Too slow, especially in winter. And the witch hunters have likely positioned scouts on all major routes. So we're trapped, Akeno concluded, her usual playful demeanor replaced by serious assessment. Not trapped, Ciri corrected. But our options are limited. A tense silence fell over the group as they considered their predicament. Finally, Issei spoke up. What if we used my elder blood differently? Not to create a traditional portal, but something they wouldn't recognize or be warded against. Yennefer turned to him, eyebrow raised. Explain. During training, you said elder blood doesn't just open passages between fixed points, but can actually manipulate the space between them. What if, instead of creating a portal that the wards would detect, we folded space around Kar Morhen itself? Ciri's eyes widened. Temporarily shift the entire fortress to a different dimensional plane. That's, she paused, considering, actually possible, in theory. I've never attempted anything on that scale, but the principles are sound. It would require enormous power, Yennefer cautioned. More than either of you could generate individually. But not more than we could generate together, Ciri suggested, excitement building in her voice. Combined with your magical amplification techniques, Yennefer, and perhaps drawing on the devil powers of our guests. Geralt raised a hand. Before we get carried away with theoretical magical experiments, let's consider the risks. What happens if this folding goes wrong? Best case, nothing. The attempt simply fails, Yennefer answered honestly. Worst case, The fortress and everyone inside could be scattered across multiple dimensional planes, likely fatally. Cheery, Geralt muttered. We need an alternative, Vesemir insisted. Something less catastrophically risky. What about a distraction? Rias suggested. Draw the witch hunters away from Kaer Morhen long enough for a smaller group to escape undetected. Geralt nodded slowly. That has potential. My contacts in the nearby villages might be convinced to report monster sightings elsewhere in the mountains. More than reports, Yennefer added. We could create actual phenomena, illusory monsters, magical anomalies far from the fortress. As the discussion continued, branching into potential strategies and contingencies, Issei found himself watching Ciri. The ashen-haired woman had grown quiet, her expression distant as though listening to something no one else could hear. Suddenly, she stiffened. They're coming. Everyone fell silent, turning to her. The hunt, she clarified, her voice tight. I can feel them testing the barriers between worlds. Yennefer closed her eyes briefly, extending her magical senses. She's right. The dimensional membrane is thinning rapidly. Her violet eyes snapped open. This changes everything. We're now facing threats from two directions simultaneously. The witch hunters might actually be useful in this scenario, Geralt observed grimly. They'd engage the hunt, buying us time, at the cost of their lives, Vesemir pointed out. The hunt would slaughter them. Since when do you feel sympathy for witch hunters? Geralt countered. It's not sympathy, it's pragmatism. A massacre would only draw more attention to this region. While the Witchers debated, Issei noticed Rias and Akino exchanging meaningful glances. Finally, Rias stepped forward. There might be another option, she announced. One that doesn't require sacrificing anyone or risking dimensional catastrophe. All eyes turned to her. As devils, we have access to transportation magic that operates on different principles than conventional portals, she explained. Our transportation circles connect directly to the underworld before redirecting to the desired location. A two-stage jump, Yennefer mused, immediately grasping the implication. The witch hunter's wards wouldn't detect the first stage because it utilizes an entirely different magical system. Exactly, Rias confirmed. We could transport everyone to the underworld temporarily, then onward to a safer location in this world once we're beyond the hunter's detection range. Is that possible? Ciri asked. Traveling to your underworld and back to our world. Theoretically, Rias acknowledged, though I've never attempted cross-dimensional transportation of this magnitude. The principles should be sound. But we'd be venturing into untested magical territory, Yennefer finished. Still, it presents fewer immediate risks than attempting to fold space around the entire fortress. Geralt looked to Vesemir. Your call, old man. It's your home. The Master Witcher considered the options carefully. The devil magic seems our best alternative, assuming it works as described. But we should prepare all options, distractions, conventional escape routes, and yes, even Issei's space-folding theory as a last resort. We'll need time to prepare the transportation circle, Akino noted. And it will require significant power to transport this many people across dimensional boundaries. How much time? Geralt asked. A few hours at minimum, Rias estimated. Longer if we need to modify the circle to account for non-devil passengers. I'll buy you that time, Ciri decided, moving toward the door. I can create false trails, lead the hunt away from Kaer Morhen temporarily. Absolutely not, Yennefer objected. You're their primary target. If they catch you, they won't, Ciri stated with quiet confidence. I've evaded them for years. Besides, they're still tracking Issei's signature, not mine. I can use that to our advantage. Before anyone could raise further objections, she turned to Issei. I'll need something of yours, something you've handled extensively that would carry traces of your power. Issei considered what he had that might serve the purpose. After a moment's hesitation, he removed the simple cord necklace he wore, a gift from his parents that had somehow survived his transition between worlds. Will this work? He asked, handing it to her. Ciri closed her fingers around it, nodding as she sensed the residual energy. Perfect. I'll make them believe you've fled north, toward Kovir. That should buy you several hours at least. I'm going with you, Geralt stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. No, Ciri countered firmly. I move faster alone, and I need you here to help defend the fortress if the witch hunters arrive before the transportation circle is ready." A tense moment passed between them, Regate father and daughter locked in silent battle of wills. Finally, Geralt gave a curt nod. 3 hours. If you're not back by then, I'm coming after you. Ciri's expression softened slightly. I'll return in 2. She turned to address the group. Prepare everything while I'm gone. If this works, we'll have a narrow window to implement whichever plan seems most viable when I return. With that, she strode to the center of the hall, closed her eyes in concentration, and vanished in a flash of emerald light. I hate when she does that, Geralt muttered, though there was pride beneath his concern. Rias immediately took charge of her part of the preparations. Akino, we'll need to modify the standard transportation circle to accommodate non-devil passengers. Kiba, Kaneko, gather everyone's belongings and essential supplies. Quote, Yennefer approached Issei as the others dispersed to their tasks. Your idea about folding space wasn't without merit, she told him quietly. In fact, it owed remarkable insight for someone with such limited training. Thanks, I think, Issei replied uncertainly. It was a genuine compliment, the sorceress assured him. Now come. While the others prepare our potential escape, we should continue your training. If circumstances force us to attempt your space folding theory after all, you'll need every bit of control you can master. As Issei followed Yennefer to continue his lessons, he couldn't shake the feeling that events were accelerating toward a critical juncture, one that would test not only his developing abilities but the newfound bond between these people from different worlds. Outside, snow continued to fall over Kaer Morhen, concealing the approaching threats beneath its silent blanket of white. But within the ancient fortress, preparations advanced with determined urgency, a race against time, against witch hunters, and against the spectral riders of the Wild Hunt who sought to claim the Elder Blood for their own dark purposes. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Worlds Between Worlds. Snow fell in silent curtains outside the frost-etched windows of Kaer Morhen's eastern tower. Issei stood motionless at its center, eyes closed, arms extended at precise angles to his body. Crimson energy coursed through his veins, visible beneath his skin like molten rivers, while a corona of darker power undulated around his form. The twin energies remained distinct yet harmonious, never fully merging yet no longer fighting for dominance. Hold the balance, Yennefer instructed, circling him with critical assessment. Feel the threshold between manifestation and containment. Quote, sweat beaded on Issei's brow despite the chamber's biting cold. For 2 hours, the sorceress had pushed him through increasingly complex exercises, each designed to refine his control over the volatile energies within him. His muscles trembled with fatigue, yet he maintained the precarious equilibrium between his devil essence and elder blood. Now, Yennefer commanded, direct a controlled pulse toward the target. Precision, not power. Across the room stood a crystalline construct, a delicate latticework of magical energy that resembled a miniature castle. Previous attempts to channel energy through it had resulted in spectacular failures, the construct either collapsing under excessive force or remaining unchanged due to insufficient power. Issei exhaled slowly, visualizing his dual energies as complementary streams flowing toward a single point. He extended his awareness outward, feeling the crystalline structure's magical resonance. Rather than forcing his power into it, he allowed the construct to draw exactly what it needed, no more, no less. The lattice began to glow, first with the red-black signature of his devil power, then with the deeper crimson of elder blood. The energies spiraled through the intricate structure, illuminating it from within without distorting its form. Gradually, the construct began to rotate, hovering inches above its pedestal. Excellent, Yennefer murmured, genuine approval warming her typically sardonic tone. You're learning to listen to magical structures rather than simply imposing your will upon them. Pride flickered through Issei at the rare compliment, momentarily disrupting his concentration. The construct wobbled dangerously before he stabilized it again. Focus, the sorceress reminded him, though without her usual sharpness. Your control has improved remarkably in a short time, but consistency remains your greatest challenge. It's getting easier, Issei acknowledged, maintaining his connection with the rotating construct. Like my body is remembering something it always knew but had forgotten. That's precisely what's happening, Yennefer confirmed. Elder blood ca. Ri's ancestral memory, magical instincts passed down through generations. Your devil transformation may have actually accelerated this process by forcing your body to adapt to supernatural energies. The construct suddenly pulsed brighter, its rotation accelerating. Yennefer stepped forward, concerned. Disengage now, she instructed. Gradually, not abruptly, Issei complied, carefully withdrawing his energy. The construct slowed, its glow fading until it settled gently back onto its pedestal. As the last tendrils of power returned to him, Issei released a ragged breath and dropped to one knee. Exhaustion finally claiming its due. You pushed yourself too hard, Yennefer observed, offering a hand to help him up. Though I admit your endurance exceeds expectations. Is it enough? Issei asked, accepting her assistance. If we need to attempt the space folding as a last resort. The sorceress's violet eyes studied him with clinical assessment that gradually softened to something more personal. It would be a tremendous risk regardless of your preparation. But yes, your control has reached a point where the attempt wouldn't be immediately suicidal, merely extremely dangerous. That's comforting, Issei replied with a weak smile. Yennefer's lips curved slightly in response. In my experience, comfort and survival rarely accompany one another. She moved to a nearby table where a decanter awaited, pouring amber liquid into 2 small glasses. Here, this will help restore your energy. Issei accepted the offered drink cautiously. What is it? A Witcher restorative. Herbs and minerals suspended in white gull. Adapted for non-mutants, of course. It accelerates magical recovery. The liquid burned pleasantly going down, spreading warmth throughout Issei's body. Almost immediately, he felt his depleted reserves beginning to replenish. Wow, he gasped. That's potent. A necessity in this world, Yennefer replied, downing her own portion with practiced ease. Magic here is physically taxing in ways your world's systems might not be. Issei leaned against the table, studying the sorceress while she rearranged various components used during their training. Despite the hours of intense instruction, she showed no signs of fatigue. Her movements remained precise, her appearance immaculate, raven hair falling in perfect waves, the subtle scent of lilac and gooseberries lingering around her. Can I ask you something personal? He ventured. Yennefer paused, arching an elegant eyebrow. You may ask. Whether I answer depends entirely on the question. Why did you come for me? I mean, why personally? Couldn't you have sent someone else to investigate the elder blood signature? The sorceress considered him for a long moment before responding. Hers wouldn't have recognized what they were seeing. Elder blood manifests differently in each carrier. With Ciri, it expresses primarily through instinctive dimensional travel. With you, she gestured to the crystalline construct. Your expression seems more oriented toward manipulation of existing magical structures. That doesn't answer my question, Issei pressed gently. A fleeting smile touched Yennefer's lips. Perceptive. Very well. Curiosity drove me as much as duty. In centuries of studying magical phenomena, I've encountered precisely one elder blood carrier. The possibility of finding another, especially in a world previously unknown to us. She shrugged elegantly. Few sorceresses could resist such a discovery. So I'm a research subject, Issei concluded, trying to keep disappointment from his voice. Initially, perhaps, Yennefer admitted with surprising candor. But you've proven considerably more interesting than a mere magical anomaly. How so? The sorceress approached him, violet eyes studying him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Most individuals, when confronted with powers beyond their understanding, react with either fear or arrogance. You've demonstrated neither. Instead, you've shown adaptation, determination, and a refreshing lack of self-pity despite circumstances that would break many. Her assessment caught Issei off guard. Before he could formulate a response, the tower door swung open to admit Rias, whose expression shifted subtly upon finding them standing in such close proximity. Am I interrupting? The Devil Princess inquired, her tone perfectly neutral despite the brief flash of something, possessiveness. Concern, in her turquoise eyes. Not at all, Yennefer replied smoothly, stepping back. We've just concluded today's training session. Rias nodded, her gaze assessing Issei's condition. You look exhausted. I'm fine, he assured her, straightening despite his body's protests. How are the preparations going? That's why I came. The transportation circle is nearly complete, but we've encountered complications. She turned to Yennefer. We need your expertise on certain modifications. The Rcers inclined her head in acknowledgement. Of course, Issei. Take 30 minutes to rest and recover. We'll resume if circumstances require it. As Yennefer departed with Rias, Issei couldn't help noticing the subtle tension between the two powerful women, like opposing magnetic fields interacting in ways too complex for simple observation. Their relationship had evolved from initial wariness to grudging respect, but something else now colored their interactions when he was involved. Exhaustion claimed him before he could analyze it further. Sinking into a chair near the room's small hearth, Issei allowed his eyes to close. Just for a moment. The dream came immediately, more vivid than ever before. Issei stood in the familiar aspen forest, but something had changed. The trees appeared more solid, the crimson mist more substantial. His awareness felt sharper, more present than in previous iterations. "You're learning," came a voice behind him. He turned to find the green-eyed woman watching him. For the first time, he could see her clearly, ashen hair, a scar across her cheek. It was Ciri, yet somehow different, her features more ethereal, her presence more ancient. "You're not really Ciri, are you?" Issei asked. The woman smiled. "I am and I am not. I am what she might become, given time and circumstance. A possibility, not a certainty." "Why have you been contacting me?" "Because the patterns are changing." She gestured around them, and Issei noticed symbols etched into the aspen trees, runes that pulsed with energy. The conjunction approaches more rapidly than before. Worlds that should remain separate are bleeding into one another. Because of me, because of what you represent, the blending of magical systems never meant to interact. She approached, studying him with eyes that seemed to see through him. Elder blood and devil essence. The convergence of spheres in a single vessel. How do I stop it? Issei asked urgently. If I'm causing dimensions to collapse. Not causing, she corrected. Accelerating. The conjunction would come regardless, but your existence creates new pathways, new possibilities. She reached out, her fingertips hovering just above his chest. The power you carry could destroy or preserve. The choice will come. What choice? Please, I need to understand. The forest began to shimmer, reality becoming less stable. They've found you, the woman warned, her form beginning to fade. The hunt approaches, but they are merely harbingers of what follows. What follows? Issei pressed. What's worse than the wild hunt? The void between worlds, she whispered as the dream collapsed around them. Where gods go to die. Issei, wake up. He jolted awake to find Kaneko shaking him, her usually expressionless face showing genuine concern. What's happening? He gasped, disoriented by the abrupt transition from dream to reality. Ciri's back, the white-haired girl reported. Injured. The hunt found her. Fully alert now, Issei followed Kaneko down the winding tower stairs to Kar Morhen's main hall. There he found Chaos, Geralt kneeling beside Ciri who lay on a makeshift pallet near the hearth. Blood seeping through hasty bandages wrapped around her shoulder and torso. Yennefer worked frantically nearby, grinding herbs and mixing potions while giving rapid instructions to Akeno who assisted with practiced efficiency. What happened? Issei demanded, approaching the wounded woman. Ciri's face was ashen, her breathing labored, but her eyes remained clear and focused. Ambush, she managed through gritted teeth. The hunt. They weren't fooled. They're coming. All of them. Geralt's expression was stone, but rage burned in his cat-like eyes. How long? Hours. Maybe less. Ciri winced as Yennefer applied a poultice to her shoulder wound. They have hounds tracking Issei's signature. Vesemir, who had been conferring with Rias near the partially completed transportation circle, approached with grim determination. We need to move up our timetable. Is the circle functional? Rias nodded, though concern shadowed her features. Theoretically, we've modified it to accommodate non-devil passengers. But without proper testing. We don't have time for testing, Geralt stated flatly. If the hunt is coming in force, this fortress becomes a death trap. What about the witch hunters? Kiba asked, entering from the courtyard where he'd been standing watch. Any sign of them? Closing in from the south, Vesemir confirmed. Caught glimpses of their advanced scouts from the watchtower. Trapped between two forces, Yennefer summarized grimly, not looking up from her work treating Ciri. neither of which we can afford to engage directly. Issei moved closer to Ciri, kneeling beside her. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You were injured because of me. Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. No, because of choices I made. Don't carry guilt that isn't yours. Her green eyes held his with fierce intensity. But listen, there's something you need to know. The hunt. They want you for something specific. Eredin spoke of a ritual. Something about convergent blood, opening the final door. What does that mean? Issei asked, cold dread settling in his stomach. I don't know, but whatever they're planning goes beyond what they wanted with me. Ciri's grip tightened momentarily before releasing. Be careful, Issei. Your power may be more dangerous than any of us realized. Yennefer finished applying the medicinal poultice. Her expression grave as she addressed the group. Ciri needs time to heal properly, but we don't have that luxury. The transportation circle is our best option, even half completed. What about your space folding theory, Issei? Vesemir asked. Could that work as an alternative? All eyes turned to him, the weight of their collective fate suddenly resting on his shoulders. Issei hesitated, calling Yennefer's assessment of the risks. It's possible, but extremely dangerous. I've never attempted anything remotely that scale. The Devil Transportation Circle is safer, Rias insisted. Even incomplete, it has established magical frameworks to build upon. Yennefer nodded reluctantly. I agree. Dimensional folding requires precision Issei hasn't yet mastered. One miscalculation could scatter us across multiple realities. Then we proceed with the transportation circle, Vesemir decided. How soon can it be ready? 30 minutes for final adjustments, Akeno estimated. But here's another complication. The circle requires significant power to transport this many people across dimensional boundaries. How much power? Geralt asked. Rias exchanged glances with Akeno before responding. More than Akeno and I can generate alone, especially for non-devil passengers. I can contribute, Yennefer offered immediately. My magical reserves are substantial. As can I, Issei added. Between my devil powers and elder blood. No, Yennefer interrupted sharply. Your energies are too volatile, too unpredictable. Introducing them into an already experimental transportation matrix would be catastrophic. She's right, Rias agreed, surprising everyone with her support of the sorceress. Your role, Issei, will be to maintain control of your powers during transit. Journey between dimensions will likely trigger your elder blood instincts to open competing pathways. Frustration welled within him. So I just stand by while everyone else risks themselves. I'm the reason we're in this situation. You're also our best hope for navigating whatever comes next, Ciri stated, attempting to sit up despite her injuries. Geralt gently but firmly kept her in place. If the transportation fails or diverts us somewhere unexpected, your developing abilities might be our only way home. Before Issei could respond, Kiba returned from another perimeter check, his expression grim. Temperatures dropping rapidly outside, frost forming on the walls. The hunt is getting closer. And witch hunters have reached the lower pass, Kaneko added, appearing silently from a side entrance. 23. Heavily armed. Vesemir nodded decisively. We've run out of time for debate. Prepare the circle now. Everyone gather essential supplies, weapons, potions, whatever you can carry that might prove useful. We leave in 30 minutes. As the group dispersed to their tasks, Issei found himself momentarily alone with Ciri. The ashen-haired woman studied him with an intensity that reminded him of his dream. There's something you're not telling me, he said quietly. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. There are many things I'm not telling you. Some because I don't know how to explain them. Others because you're not ready to hear them. I had another dream, Issei confessed. You were there, or someone who looked like you, but older, different. Interest sharpened Ciri's gaze. What did this other me say? That the conjunction is accelerating because of what I am, a convergence of magical systems. That the hunt is just the beginning of something worse. Ciri was silent for a long moment, her expression troubled. Dreams of elder blood carriers often contain truth, though rarely in straightforward forms. If your dreams speak of greater threats beyond the hunt. She shook her head. One crisis at a time. Focus on surviving today before worrying about tomorrow's battles. Geralt returned with bandages and potions, ending their conversation. With a reassuring nod to Issei. He resumed treating Ciri's wounds with practiced efficiency. In what had once been Kar Morhen's great hall, Rias and Akino worked with intense concentration on the massive transportation circle. Unlike their usual elegant magic circles with their symmetrical patterns and clean lines, this construct appeared almost chaotic, devil sigils intersecting with symbols of elder speech. Mathematical equations spiraling around alchemical formulations. This contradicts everything I was taught about magical geometry, Akino remarked, carefully inscribing a complex binding rune where two seemingly incompatible patterns intersected. Necessity breeds innovation, Rias replied, her hands glowing with crimson energy as she reinforced a particularly volatile section. Traditional methods won't suffice when bridging fundamentally different magical systems. Yennefer approached, carrying several crystalline vials filled with shimmering liquids. These should help stabilize the transition points, she explained, kneeling to examine their work. Impressive adaptation. Your understanding of magical principles exceeds what I expected. Devil magic requires rigorous theoretical foundations, Rias explained, accepting the offered vials. Especially for those of us from noble houses who must create and maintain complex familial enchantments across generations. The sorceress nodded appreciatively, similar to how magical lineages function in my world. She traced a finger above a particularly intricate section of the circle. This connection between our magical frameworks is elegant. Your work, Akino's, actually, Rias acknowledged. She has a gift for harmonizing disparate magical currents. The black-haired devil smiled at the recognition. My mixed heritage proved unexpectedly useful. Being half-fallen angel gives me insight into how different magical systems can coexist without neutralizing each other. Yennefer's violet eyes studied Akino with renewed interest. Fascinating. In my world, hybrid magical practitioners are exceedingly rare, usually the result of complex enchantments rather than natural inheritance. Their technical discussion continued as they refined the transportation circle, professional respect gradually eroding the lingering tension between them. When Issei entered sometime later, he found the three women were king in surprisingly harmonious coordination. The modifications are complete, Rias announced as she noticed his arrival. We're ready to attempt activation. Issei surveyed the sprawling magical sea, construct that now occupied most of the hall's floor. It looks complex. An understatement, Yennefer replied dryly. We've essentially created a bridge between three different magical systems, devil transportation magic, this world's dimensional theory, and pathways compatible with elder blood resonance. Will it work? He asked, unable to keep concern from his voice. The three women exchanged glances before Akino answered with uncharacteristic seriousness. In theory, the circle incorporates safeguards to prevent catastrophic failure, but there are too many variables for absolute certainty. Where exactly are we trying to go? Issei asked. The underworld, as planned. Initially, Rias confirmed. From there, we should be able to open a secondary portal to a safe location in his world, assuming the witch hunters haven't extended their anti-portal wards too far. And if they have, then we remain in the underworld temporarily, she replied. It's not ideal for our non-devil companions, but it would be secure from both the hunt and witch hunters. Vesemir entered, accompanied by Geralt supporting the still injured Ciri. Hiba and Kaneko followed, carrying bundles of supplies and weapons. Status, the old witcher demanded. Ready for activation, Rias reported. Everyone should position themselves according to these markings. She indicated specific points within the complex circle. Non-devils in the inner ring, devils in the outer. As they arranged themselves, Issei noticed that his assigned position placed him directly between Rias and Yennefer. Whether by design or coincidence, the arrangement would place him at the intersection of their different magical influences. What about the fortress? Geralt asked as he helped Ciri into position. We're leaving it undefended. I've activated the old defensive wards, Vesemir replied. They won't stop determined invaders indefinitely, but they'll prevent immediate plundering. A hint of sadness crossed his weathered features. Kar Morhen has stood through worse. It will remain until we return. With everyone positioned, Rias addressed the group one final time. The transition may be disorienting. You'll likely experience sensory distortion, possibly pain. Whatever happens, do not leave your designated position until we've fully materialized on the other side. What if something goes wrong? Heba asked the question everyone was thinking. Then we improvise, Yennefer stated simply. As we've been doing since this began. Rias nodded to Akeno, and together they began the activation sequence. Crimson energy flowed from their extended hands, tracing the intricate patterns of the transportation circle. The symbols began to glow, first with the distinctive red-black signature of devil magic. Then with additional colors as Yennefer added her power to the matrix. Violet energy interwove with crimson, strengthening the patterns while adding new dimensions to the magical construct. The circle began to rotate slowly, individual symbols shifting positions while maintaining their relative orientation. The primary framework is stabilizing, Yennefer announced, concentration evident in her voice. Beginning phase transition. The rotation accelerated, the glow intensifying until it illuminated the entire hull with pulsating light. Issei felt the energies building around them, pressing against his skin like a physical force. Inside him, his own powers responded instinctively, elder blood resonating with the dimensional aspects of the circle, devil essence connecting to the underworld pathways. Containment. Rias reminded him sharply, noticing the crimson glow beginning to manifest in his veins. Focus on maintaining your internal balance. Issei nodded, concentrating on the techniques Yennefer and Ciri had taught him. He visualized his dual energies as controlled currents flowing through carefully defined channels, responding to the external magic without merging with it. The transportation circle's rotation reached a critical velocity, symbols blurring into continuous bands of light. The stone floor beneath them seemed to dissolve, replaced by a swirling vortex of energy. Transition initiating, Akeno called over the building crescendo of magical energies. Establishing underworld anchor point, a thunderous crack echoed through the hull as the sea. Arkley's outer ring suddenly froze in position while the inner ring continued spinning. The dissonance between the two created a warping effect in the air itself, reality bending as conflicting magical forces sought equilibrium. Something's wrong, Yennefer shouted, her violet eyes widening in alarm. There's interference. Outside, a bone-chilling horn blast cut through the magical cacophony, the unmistakable signal of the wild hunt's arrival. Frost immediately began spreading across the windows and walls, creeping toward the transportation circle with unnatural speed. They're attempting to disrupt the dimensional anchor, Ciri realized, struggling to maintain her position despite her injuries. Freezing the pathways between worlds. Rias's expression hardened with determination. Akeno, full power. We need to complete the transition before their interference locks us in place. Both devil women intensified their output, crimson energy surging through the circle with renewed force. The Frost's advance slowed but didn't stop, ice crystals forming along the outer edges of their magical construct. It's not enough, Geralt observed grimly. The hunt's magic is directly opposing the dimensional aspects of the circle. Issei felt the transportation matrix destabilizing around them, the carefully balanced forces beginning to conflict rather than complement one another. In that moment of crisis, understanding crystallized within him. The dream, Ciri's warnings, Yennefer's teachings, all pointing to a solution he'd been reluctant to embrace. I can stabilize it, he announced, meeting first Rias's gaze. Then Yennefer's. But I'll need to actively channel my power into the circle, not just maintain containment. Too dangerous, Yennefer immediately objected. You're untrained. Energies could collapse the entire matrix. We don't have a choice, Issei countered, as Frost continued advancing despite their best efforts. The hunt is specifically targeting the dimensional aspects, exactly what my elder blood can reinforce. A massive impact shook the fortress, dust raining from the ceiling as something enormous struck the outer walls. The transportation circle wavered, its patterns temporarily distorting before Akeno and Rias forced them back into alignment. They're breaching the defenses, Vesemir reported. We're out of time. Rias and Yennefer exchanged a quick glance, some unspoken understanding passing between them. Do it, Rias finally agreed. But carefully, channel only what's needed, nothing more. Yennefer nodded reluctantly. Focus on reinforcing the transition pathways, not the anchor points. Imagine your power as a bridge, not a foundation. Taking a deep breath, Issei closed his eyes and reached for the dual wellsprings of energy within him. This time, instead of keeping them rigidly separated, he allowed them to flow parallel to one another, distinct but harmonious, like complementary instruments in an orchestra. He extended his awareness into the transportation circle, feeling its complex structure, the devil pathways reaching toward the underworld, the dimensional bridges stretching between worlds, the protective wards maintaining their integrity during transit. With careful precision, he directed his elder blood into the weakening dimensional bridges, reinforcing them against the hunt's freezing influence. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The frost's advance halted, then began to recede as crimson energy pulsed through the circle's patterns. The rotation stabilized, accelerating smoothly rather than erratically. "It's working," Akeno confirmed, surprise evident in her voice. "The pathways are stabilizing." Emboldened by the success, Issei carefully introduced a measured amount of his devil essence into the underworld anchor points, strengthening the connection that Rias and Akeno were maintaining. The circle's glow intensified, the pulsing light shifting from crimson to a deeper, richer red interwoven with black and violet threads. "Transition at 70%, Rias announced. "Maintain current output." Another impact rocked the fortress, closer this time. The temperature in the hull plummeted, their breath becoming visible in the suddenly frigid air. Through the windows, Issei glimpsed spectral riders surrounding the fortress, dozens of them, led by the towering armored figure of Eridin. "They're trying something else," Ciri warned, her face contorted with both pain and concentration. "I can feel them attempting to redirect our destination." Issei sensed it too, a cold, alien presence infiltrating the transportation matrix, subtly altering the dimensional coordinates encoded in their magical construct. The hunt wasn't trying to prevent their escape, they were trying to hijack it. Ensure the group emerged somewhere of their choosing. Without thinking, Issei reached for Rias's hand on his right and Yennefer's on his left. Both women started at the unexpected contact but didn't pull away. "I need your help," he explained urgently. "They're changing our destination coordinates. I can feel the alterations but can't correct them alone." Understanding immediately, Rias squeezed his hand. "Guide us. Show us what you're sensing." Through the physical connection, Issei shared his awareness of the transportation matrix, revealing the hunt's subtle manipulations that were invisible to conventional magical perception. Both women's eyes widened as they experienced the dimensional structure through his unique perspective. "Clever," Yennefer murmured. "They're inserting RSIVE loops in the transition pathways, ensuring we'd emerge in their domain regardless of our intended destination." "Can we counter it?" Rias asked, already adjusting her magical output to address the infiltration. "Not completely," Yennefer admitted. "Not without delaying our departure further." "Then we adapt," Issei decided. "Instead of fighting their alterations, we'll incorporate a second airy deviation, a dimensional pivot point mid-transit." Both women looked at him with surprise that quickly shifted to understanding. "A two-stage jump with a random intermediate vector," Yennefer elaborated, admiration coloring her tone. "The hunt would track our initial trajectory but lose us at the pivot." "Exactly," Issei confirmed. "Can you implement it?" Rias nodded decisively. "Akeno, prepare for trajectory modification on my mark." Working in perfect synchronization, the four magic users reconfigured the transportation circle's underlying structure. Issei's elder blood provided the dimensional pivot point, while Rias and Akeno modified the devil pathways to accommodate the new approach. Yennefer's contributions stabilized the entire matrix, preventing collapse during the complex restructuring. "Transition at 90%, Akeno reported. "Hunt interference neutralized through diversion." The fortress walls shuddered under continuous assault, sections of the ceiling beginning to collapse around them. Through cracked windows, glimpses of armored riders breaching the outer defenses were visible, the hunt closing in from all sides. "Hold formation," Vesemir commanded as debris fell dangerously close to their circle. "We're almost there." The transportation matrix reached critical resonance, light engulfing them completely. Issei felt reality dissolving around him, his consciousness stretching across dimensions. The sensation was different from his previous experiences with elder blood transportation, more structured, less intuitive, following predetermined paths rather than instinctive jumps. Through his connection with Rias and Yennefer, he sensed the hunt's magic pursuing them through the dimensional void, cold tendrils reaching for their transit signature. At precisely the calculated moment, their trajectory shifted, veering away from both the underworld and the hunt's intended destination. For a breathless eternity, they existed everywhere and now. Suspended between worlds in a state beyond physical definition. Then, with disorienting suddenness, reality reasserted itself around them. They materialized in a vast chamber unlike anything Issei had seen before. Walls of polished black stone veined with glowing blue crystal, a domed ceiling that seemed to reflect a night sky no earthly world could claim, and floor patterns reminiscent of our transportation circle but far more ancient and complex. Issei released Rias and Yennefer's hands, dropping to his knees as exhaustion claimed him. Around him, the others were similarly affected, all standing, but visibly disoriented. Where are we? Heba voiced the question on everyone's mind, his sword materializing instinctively in his hand. Yennefer turned slowly, surveying their surroundings with growing amazement. Impossible, she whispered. This can't be. You recognize this place? Geralt asked, supporting the weakened Ciri who stared at their environment with equal astonishment. Not specifically, the sorceress replied, but I recognize the architectural style, the magical resonance. She approached one wall, fingers hovering over the glowing crystal veins. This is Ain El construction. Elder Elf architecture from before the first conjunction. The Hunt's world? Vesemir asked sharply, hand moving to his sword. No, Ciri corrected, her voice strengthening with certainty. Not their current world. This is older, more ancient. She turned to Issei with newfound respect. You didn't just divert us from their trap, you brought us to a place I've only glimpsed in dreams and visions. A nexus point between worlds. I didn't choose this destination consciously, Issei admitted. It was more like, the Elder Blood recognized it as a safe harbor away from the Hunt's influence. Rias approached one of the chamber walls, studying inscriptions that covered its surface. These symbols, some resemble ancient devil script, but with significant differences. Because they predate the division of magical systems, Yennefer theorized, excitement building in her voice. This chamber may date from before the original conjunction, when magical laws were universal across all spheres. So where exactly are we? Akino asked, maintaining a protective barrier around their group as a precaution. Between, Ciri answered simply. Not fully in any one world, but connected to many. She approached Issei, green eyes meeting his with intense focus. Your Elder Blood didn't just activate the existing pathways in our transportation circle, it resonated with this chamber across dimensions. Drawing us here. Before Issei could respond, a deep rumbling shook the chamber. The crystalline veins pulsed brighter, patterns of light spreading across the floor from Air arrival point toward a massive sealed doorway at the chamber's far end. Something's responding to our presence, Geralt observed, positioning himself protectively near Ciri. The patterns reached the doorway, illuminating intricate engravings previously hidden in shadow. The massive stone portal, easily 20 feet tall, shuddered once before beginning to slide open with ponderous deliberation. Defensive positions, Vesemir commanded, the Witchers and Devils forming a protective semicircle facing the opening door. Issei moved to stand beside Rias, his exhaustion temporarily forgotten. Both his devil essence and Elder Blood stirred in response to whatever lay beyond. Can you sense anything? He asked quietly. Rias shook her head. Nothing specific. Just immense power, neither holy nor demonic. Ancient, Yennefer added, joining them. Older than any magic I've encountered. As the doorway completed its opening sequence, soft blue light spilled from beyond, illuminating a corridor that seemed to stretch impossibly far, perspective and distance behaving according to rules that defied conventional physics. From within that distorted corridor, a figure approached, human. OID in general form but with proportions subtly wrong, movements too fluid for natural locomotion. As it drew closer, details became clearer, skin like polished silver, eyes containing swirling galaxies. And a face of such perfect symmetry it bordered on unsettling. The entity paused at the threshold, studying them with those cosmic eyes. When it spoke, the words formed directly in their minds rather than through conventional sound. Elder Blood returns to the crossroads. Convergence accelerates. The pattern recognizes its catalyst. Its attention focused specifically on Issei, the intensity of its gaze almost physical in impact. Hybrid vessel. Unexpected variation. The conjunction approaches differently through you. Who are you? Issei managed to ask, his voice sounding painful. Lee mundane against the entity's telepathic communication. Guardian. Observer. Memory of what was and what may be again. The entity's form shifted slightly, becoming both more and less human simultaneously. You may call me curator. For simplicity's tongue requires. Asterisk. Geralt stepped forward, positioning himself slightly ahead of the group. What is this place? Nexus Chamber. Conjunction anchoring point. Built before worlds separated, maintained beyond time's conventional flow. The curator's attention shifted between them. Many visitors. Different spheres. Unprecedented convergence. Asterisk. We didn't intend to come here. Rias explained diplomatically. Our transportation was diverted. No accidents in patterns weave. Your arrival fulfills design beyond your awareness. The entity's gaze returned to Issei. Elder blood mixed with devil essence creates new pathways. The hunt pursues not just power, but possibility, convergent blood completing ritual of reunification. Asterisk. Ciri moved forward despite her injuries. Intense interest overriding caution. Reunification. What ritual? Instead of answering directly, the curator gestured toward the chamber's center. The floor there transformed, revealing a three-dimensional projection of interconnected spheres, dozens of them, each seemingly representing a different world or dimension. Once, all spheres existed as one reality. The first conjunction separated them, establishing boundaries. Subsequent conjunctions temporarily weakened these boundaries, allowing limited crossover. The projection changed, showing the sphere slowly drifting toward a central point. Current conjunction progresses toward complete convergence, not temporary alignment but permanent merger. Asterisk. That sounds catastrophic, Yennefer observed, studying the projection with growing concern. For many spheres, yes. Incompatible magical systems, physical laws, and life forms would create chaos beyond comprehension. The curator's attention fixed on Issei again. Yet you exist. Devil and elder blood coexisting in one vessel. Proof that convergence need not mean destruction. Asterisk. So I'm what? A prototype for universal magical compatibility? Issei asked incredulously. Simplification, but essence correct. Your existence represents possibility of harmonious convergence rather than catastrophic collision. Asterisk. And the hunt? Geralt pressed. What do they want with him? The curator's expression shifted subtly, the closest it could apparently come to displaying emotion. The Ain seek not harmony but dominance. They believe convergent blood, elder blood mixed with other magical essences, can be used to control the conjunction rather than merely survive it. To dictate which aspects of which worlds persist in the merged reality. Asterisk. They want to reshape reality itself, Yennefer realized, horrified. To become gods of the new convergent world. Correct assessment. Hunt pursues convergent blood to complete ascension redo. Ancient magic designed to channel conjunction energies through prepared vessel. Asterisk. Issei felt the weight of this revelation like a physical burden. I'm the vessel they want. One possibility among several. Pattern contains alternative paths, divergent outcomes. The curator's form shimmered, becoming momentarily transparent before resolidifying. Time in Nexus limited. Pattern requires maintenance. You must proceed. Asterisk. Proceed where? Rias asked. We were attempting to reach my world, the underworld. Many destinations available from Nexus. Choose with awareness of consequences. The projection of spheres expanded. Individual worlds becoming more detailed. Hunt cannot enter Nexus directly but will track your exit vector. Choose wisely. Asterisk. Vesemir stepped forward, practical concerns foremost in his mind. We need somewhere safe to recover and plan. Somewhere with resources and potential allies. The curator gestured, and several spheres in the projection illuminated more brightly than others. Compatible destinations for your combined natures. Some familiar, some unknown. Choose. Asterisk. The group gathered around the projection, examining the highlighted worlds. Each sphere displayed brief glimpses of its nature, landscapes, inhabitants, magical properties. That one, Ciri identified, pointing to a sphere that showed verdant forests and mountains reminiscent of their own world. That's Brokilon Forest. We'd find allies among the Dryads. Too isolated, Geralt countered. Limited resources for healing and research. He indicated another sphere showing a bustling medieval city. Novigrad would offer more options. And more witch hunters, Yennefer reminded him. We'd be trading one threat for another. Rias studied the projection carefully before indicating a sphere that showed a modern cityscape interspersed with traditional Japanese architecture. That's my world, or close to it. We'd have access to devil resources and protection from my family. The hunt has never breached the barriers to your world before, Yennefer noted. They might not be prepared for its particular magical properties. While they debated, Issei found his attention drawn to a different sphere, one showing neither bustling cities nor pristine wilderness, but a strange landscape of shattered reality. Islands of different environments floated in a swirling void, connected by bridges of pure energy. Something about it resonated with his dual nature, calling to both his elder blood and devil essence simultaneously. The curator noticed his interest. The conjunction Borderlands, where fragments of colliding worlds already merge. Dangerous but instructive for one of your nature. That place, it's already experiencing what might happen everywhere if the conjunction completes. Issei asked. Correct. Accelerated Convergence Zone. Laboratory of Possibilities. Both sanctuary and battlefield for those who understand its nature. Then that's where we need to go, Issei decided. If I'm somehow connected to this conjunction, I need to understand what's happening firsthand. The others turned to him with varying expressions of concern and surprise. That location appears extremely unstable, Rias observed, studying the fragmented landscape with apprehension. Precisely why it's perfect, Yennefer countered, understanding dawning in her violet eyes. Conventional tracking would be nearly impossible in such chaotic magical conditions. The hunt would struggle to pinpoint us. And if Issei truly is central to this convergence phenomenon, that environment might help him understand his abilities better, Ciri added, her earlier exhaustion seemingly forgotten in the face of this new possibility. Geralt remained skeptical, or it could excel, or aid whatever process is already happening within him. We'd be walking into unknown territory with limited intelligence. When are we not? Ciri countered with a hint of dark humor. The curator's form flickered again. More pronounced this time. Decision required. Nexus stability diminishing with prolonged presence of convergent blood. Issei looked to each of his companions, seeking consensus. I believe this is our best option. But I won't force anyone to follow me there. If some of you prefer a different destination, we stay together, Rias interrupted firmly. Divided, we'd be vulnerable to both the hunt and whatever other threats await. One by one, the others nodded their agreement, even Vesemir, though the old Witcher's expression suggested he had significant reservations. The Borderlands, then, Issei confirmed to the curator. How do we proceed? Nexus will facilitate transition. Prepare yourselves. Fragmented reality imposes unique stresses on consciousness and physical form. The entity gestured toward the projection, and the sphere representing the Borderlands expanded until it dominated the chamber. The image grew increasingly detailed, revealing the complex topology of the fragmented world, islands of different environments suspended in a swirling void, connected by bridges of energy that pulsed with constantly shifting colors. Final warning. Borderlands contain aspects of many spheres. Entities from countless worlds traverse its fragments. Not all are benevolent. Not all are comprehensible to minds shaped by singular reality. Noted. Geralt replied dryly. We'll keep our swords handy. The curator's form began to fade, becoming increasingly transparent. Transition initiating. Pattern continues through you, Convergent One. Your choices reshape the conjunction's path. As the entity vanished completely, the chamber around them began to shift. The walls seemed to lose solidity, becoming translucent, then transparent, revealing the swirling energies of the void beyond. The floor beneath them remained solid even as the rest of the nexus dissolved around them. Stay close, Yennefer commanded as reality warped around their small group. Mental discipline is crucial during transition to fragmented spaces. Issei felt the familiar sensation of dimensional travel building, the stretching of consciousness, the dissolution of conventional physics, but with a new element, a feeling of fragmentation, as though his very being might scatter into countless pieces if he didn't maintain focus. Instinctively, he reached for Rias and Yennefer again, forming the same triangular connection that had stabilized their earlier transportation. This time, Ciri joined them, completing a perfect square of power that anchored the entire group through the chaotic transition. Focus on remaining whole, Siri instructed, her experience with dimensional travel evident in her confident tone. Visualize our group as a single entity moving through space. The last remnants of the Nexus chamber dissolved around them, leaving them suspended in a kaleidoscopic void. For one terrifying moment, Issei felt his consciousness beginning to fragment. Different aspects of his perception splitting along divergent paths, each following a different potential reality. Then Rias's voice cut through the chaos. Issei. Center yourself. You're our anchor. The reminder snapped his awareness back into unified focus. Drawing on both his devil essence and elder blood, Issei created a sphere of stable reality around their group, a bubble of cohesion. In the swirling madness of transitional space, with a final wrenching sensation, they emerged into the borderlands. The landscape that materialized around them defied conventional description. They stood on what appeared to be a stone platform floating in a vast iridescent void. In the distance, islands of varying sizes hovered at different elevations, some containing lush forests, others barren deserts. Still others cityscape fragments that appeared torn from different time periods and worlds. Connecting these reality fragments were bridges of pure energy, some solid-seeming, others little more than gossamer threads of light. The sky, if it could be called that, constantly shifted between different atmospheric conditions, sections of blue mingling with starry night, aurora-like phenomena, and strange color patterns that existed in no natural spectrum. By the eternal fire, Vesemir breathed, his weathered features registering rare astonishment. In all my years, it's beautiful, Akino observed, watching energy patterns dance between the floating islands. Terrible, but beautiful. Issei took a tentative step forward, testing the solidity of the platform beneath them. It felt real enough, though a subtle vibration suggested it wasn't as stable as conventional matter. This place, it's like my dreams, he realized. The fragmentation, the coexistence of contradictory realities. Because your dual nature already contains aspects of what this place represents, Yennefer theorized, studying their surroundings with analytical intensity. The convergence of magical systems that should, by conventional understanding, remain separate. Siri approached the edge of their platform, peering into the swirling void below. I've glimpsed places like this during uncontrolled jumps between worlds, but never remained long enough to explore them. Where exactly are we in relation to our original worlds? Rias asked, attempting to orient herself within this chaotic environment. Everywhere and nowhere, Yennefer replied. The borderlands exist at the intersections between spheres, spaces where reality itself becomes malleable as worlds bleed into one another. Geralt, ever practical, was already assessing their immediate surroundings for threats and resources. This platform seems stable enough, but we need shelter, supplies, and a defensible position. Assuming such concepts even apply here. They do, came an unexpected voice from behind them. The group turned as one, weapons materializing in hands with practiced speed. At the far edge of their platform stood a figure that hadn't been there moments before, a woman with silver hair and golden eyes, dressed in attire that combined elements of modern clothing with what appeared to be armor made from materials none of them recognized. She raised her hands in a universal gesture of peace. Apologies for startling you. New arrivals are rare enough to merit attention, especially groups as unique as yours. Who are you? Geralt demanded, his sword remaining at ready position. A resident, a guide, of sorts. Her golden eyes scanned their group, lingering on Issei with particular interest. You may call me Alara. I monitor this sector of the borderlands for the Convergence Council. Convergence Council, Yennefer repeated, skepticism evident in her tone. Those who study and attempt to manage the ongoing merger of realities. Alara explained, this platform is one of our observation points. Your arrival triggered several monitoring enchantments. She gestured, and what appeared to be a holographic display materialized beside her, symbols and diagrams that combined magical formulations with advanced technological elements. Fascinating, she murmured, studying the display. Your GR contains magical signatures from at least 3 distinct spheres, and you, her gaze fixed on Issei, register as a convergence nexus in human form. Is that what they're calling it now? Issei replied uneasily. I've heard, convergent blood, and hybrid vessel, so far. Surprise registered on Alara's features. You've spoken with a curator. Few travelers ever encounter them directly. Her manner shifted, becoming more formal. This changes matters considerably. Please, you must come with me to the Anchor Citadel. The council will want to speak with you immediately. We go nowhere until we have more information. Rias stated firmly. Our recent experiences have made us cautious about following strangers based solely on their claims. Alara nodded, seeming to respect the devil's caution. Understandable. The borderlands are not without dangers. She gestured toward the surrounding void. This region alone contains entities from dozens of partially merged realities, not all of them benevolent. As if summoned by her words, a distant shriek echoed across the void, a sound that seemed to contain multiple voices layered atop one another. On a far floating island, something SSIVE moved among crystalline structures, its form shifting between different configurations with each motion. And that's one of the more comprehensible inhabitants, Alara noted dryly. The Anchor Citadel offers protection, resources, and information. 3 things you'll need to survive here. What assurance do we have that this council isn't just another group seeking to exploit Issei's abilities? Yennefer challenged. None that would satisfy you immediately, Alara admitted candidly. But consider your alternatives. This observation platform has limited supplies and no defensive measure. Against the more aggressive entities that roam the void. The nearest stable habitat is several transit bridges away, through territories controlled by factions less welcoming than the council. Geralt and Vesemir exchanged glances. The younger Witcher giving a slight nod of assessment. She's not lying about our vulnerability here, Geralt concluded. This position is indefensible, and some of us require immediate medical attention, Akino added, gesturing to Ciri whose bandages had begun seeping blood again after the dimensional transition. Issei studied Alara carefully, trying to sense any deception in her manner. To his surprise, he found his elder blood responding to her presence, not with alarm but with a strange recognition, as though her nature resonated with aspects of his own power. You're like me, he realized suddenly. Not exactly, but you have convergent blood too. A small smile touched Alara's lips. Perceptive. Yes, I'm a second-generation convergent. My parents came from different spheres. It's relatively common among Borderlands natives. She extended her hand, palm up, revealing a faint pattern of light beneath her skin, similar to how Issei's veins glowed when channeling elder blood. But with a different configuration. That's why the council sent me to make contact, she continued. Convergents tend to trust other convergents more readily than pure sphere beings. After a moment's consideration, Issei turned to his companions. I think we should go with her. Not because I trust this council completely, but because we need information and resources that we won't find on our own. I agree, Ciri stated, one hand pressed against her bleeding wound. Besides, I sense no malice from her. Caution, yes, but not hostility. We remain alert, Vesemir decided. Speaking for the Witchers, at first sign of treachery, we withdraw and reassess. Rias nodded her agreement. My peerage will stay close to Issei at all times. Acceptable, Alara acknowledged. The council respects proper caution. Now, if you'll follow me, the transit bridge will activate momentarily. As she spoke, a beam of blue-white energy extended from their platform toward a distant structure barely visible through the swirling void, a massive floating citadel constructed from what appeared to be a combination of stone, crystal, and technology beyond their understanding. The bridge responds to convergent energy, Alara explained, approaching the connection point. Stay close and maintain focus. The void has a disorienting effect on those not accustomed to it. With Alara leading, they stepped onto the energy bridge, a surface that felt solid despite its luminous, seemingly insubstantial nature. As they proceeded, Issei found himself walking between Rias and Yennefer. Both women maintaining protective proximity. What do you think of all this? Rias asked him quietly. A council studying the very phenomenon affecting you seems too convenient to be coincidence. Nothing about our situation seems coincidental anymore, Issei replied, watching energy patterns swirl in the void around them. The curator said my arrival fulfills some kind of pattern or design. Maybe this is part of it. Or perhaps your elder blood instinctively brought us here because this place holds answers you need, Yennefer suggested. The power within you may understand more than your conscious mind can articulate. The transit bridge carried them through the void, occasionally passing near other floating islands. On some, they glimpsed inhabitants, beings that defied easy categorization, some humanoid, others utterly alien. Several paused in their activities to observe the passing group with obvious interest. Are they all convergents? Issei asked Alara, gesturing toward the diverse entities. Some are, she confirmed. Others are natives of worlds partially absorbed into the borderlands during previous partial conjunctions. Many have adapted to life here, finding niches within the fragmented reality. How long has this place existed? Siri inquired, her scholarly curiosity evident despite her physical discomfort. The borderlands have existed in some form since the first conjunction, Alara explained, but they've expanded significantly during each subsequent alignment of spheres. What was once merely a thin membrane between worlds has become a reality unto itself, one that grows with each new convergence event. As they neared the Anchor Citadel, its true scale became apparent, a massive structure that appeared to be constructed from fragments of different architectural styles seamlessly merged into a cohesive whole. Crystal spires rose alongside Gothic towers, modern steel and glass structures integrated with what appeared to be living architecture of some biological origin. The Citadel serves as both research facility and neutral territory for the various factions that inhabit the borderlands, Alara continued. The Council maintains its neutrality through a combination of diplomatic agreements and formidable defenses. What exactly does this council want with us? Vesemir asked, his weathered features revealing healthy skepticism. Information, primarily. Your group represents an unprecedented convergence of magical systems from multiple spheres. And him? She nodded toward Issei, a natural convergent manifestin. Elder blood abilities is something our researchers have theorized but never documented. The transit bridge terminated at a broad platform extending from one of the Citadel's lower levels. As they stepped onto solid ground again, a delegation awaited them, individuals of various species and origins, all wearing similar silver-accented attire that apparently designated council affiliation. Welcome to Anchor Citadel, announced a tall, distinguished-looking man with subtle non-human features, his skin bearing a faint blue undertone, eyes slightly too large for a conventional human face. I am Coordinator Thalon, council representative for this sector. We've been monitoring your arrival with great interest. Alara stepped forward. Coordinator, these travelers came via the Nexus Chamber. They've had direct contact with a curator. Murmurs rippled through the delegation at this information. Thalon's expression registered surprise before quickly returning to diplomatic neutrality. Most remarkable, the curators rarely interact directly with travelers. He focused on Issei. And you must be the convergent nexus our instruments detected. Your presence has created quite a stir in our monitoring systems. Before Issei could respond, Rias stepped slightly forward, a subtle but clear indication of her protective stance. We've traveled far and faced considerable dangers. Some of our companions require medical attention before any detailed discussions. Thalon nodded immediately. Of course, hospitality before business, a principle honored across most spheres. He gestured, several members of the delegation approached. Our healers will attend to your injured. We've prepared accommodations suitable for your diverse requirements. We stay together, Geralt stated firmly. No separating the group. As you wish, Thalon agreed without hesitation. Though our medical facilities would provide better care for your injured companion. Siri straightened despite her obvious pain. I'll manage. We've learned the hard way that division leads to vulnerability. The coordinator studied their group with renewed interest. You've faced the hunt, he observed, not a question but a statement. Their pursuit methods are well documented in our archives. You know of the wild hunt? Yennefer asked sharply. The borderlands contain knowledge from countless spheres, Thalon replied. The Ain-El and their hunt have breached the boundaries of many worlds throughout history. Their interest in elder blood carriers is of particular concern to the Council, given the accelerating conjunction. He gestured toward the Citadel's interior. Please, follow me. Once your immediate needs are addressed, we have much to discuss regarding your unique situation, and the role it may play in the greater pattern unfolding across the spheres. As they followed the coordinator into the Citadel, Issei found himself overwhelmed by the structure's impossible architecture, spaces that seemed larger inside than their external dimensions should allow, corridors that curved according to non-Euclidean geometry, and materials that responded to proximity by subtly altering their properties. This place, he whispered to Yennefer who walked beside him, it feels both ancient and futuristic simultaneously. Because it is, the sorceress replied, her voice low. The architecture, styles span millennia and multiple technological paradigms. Some elements appear magical in nature, others technological, yet they function as a cohesive whole. Her violet eyes narrowed slightly. Quote, most interesting is how it all seems to center around studying and monitoring the conjunction phenomenon. You think that's their true purpose? Understanding the conjunction. Understanding rarely exists without purpose, Yennefer observed. The question is whether their purpose aligns with our interests, or with those who would exploit your abilities. They were led to a spacious chamber that somehow accommodated itself to their expectations, containing elements familiar to both the Witcher world's medieval aesthetics and the more modern comforts familiar to Issei and the Devils. Multiple adjoining rooms provided private spaces while maintaining proximity. These quarters will adjust to your preferences over time, Thalon explained. The materials are partially responsive to occupant needs, a necessity when hosting beings from disparate spheres with different environmental requirements. Healers were permitted to enter under Geralt's watchful supervision, attending to Ciri and assessing the others for less obvious injuries. Their methods combined advanced medical technology with magical techniques that seemed familiar yet distinct from anything in either the Witcher world or the Devil realm. Your companion's injuries are serious but treatable, the chief healer informed them after examining Ciri. The dimensional transition exacerbated the physical trauma. We recommend a regeneration treatment that will accelerate her natural healing processes. Ciri, lying on what appeared to be a medical bed that monitored her condition through means none of them fully understood, looked to Geralt and Yennefer. Your assessment. Yennefer examined the proposed treatment components with a sorceress's critical eye. The principles appear sound, though the specific implementation differs from our methods. I detect no harmful elements. After receiving nods of approval from her surrogate parents, Ciri consented to the treatment. The healers applied a luminescent substance to her wounds, then activated a device that bathed the affected areas in pulsating energy. Almost immediately, the bleeding stopped, and the damaged tissues began visibly regenerating. Remarkable, Yennefer murmured, studying the process with professional interest. Targeted cellular stimulation without the side effects of conventional magical healing. While Ciri received treatment, Thalon addressed the rest of the group. Once you've had time to rest and recover, the council requests a formal meeting. Particularly with you, he nodded to Issei. Your unique nature represents a significant development in our understanding of convergent phenomena. What exactly does that mean? Issei asked directly. Everyone keeps talking about my unique nature and convergent blood, like I should understand the implications. Thalon considered his response carefully. The conjunction of spheres, the gradual merging of different realities, typically creates conflict between incompatible magical systems. Beings from one sphere cannot normally utilize or even survive exposure to magical energies from another without suffering harmful effects. He gestured toward Issei. Yet you exist as a fu-ennectional hybrid, elder blood and devil essence coexisting in one form. This suggests possibilities previously considered theoretical at best, that convergence might occur without catastrophic conflict between magical systems. So I'm what? Proof that worlds can merge without destroying each other. Issei pressed. Potentially. Or you might represent a unique exception rather than a universal principle. Thalon's expression grew more serious. Which is precisely why both the council and the hunt are so interested in you. One seeks understanding, the other control, but both recognize the significance of what you represent. After ensuring the group's immediate needs were addressed, Thalon departed with a promise to return once they'd had time to rest. When the Citadel representatives had all withdrawn, Geralt immediately initiated a security assessment of their quarters, checking for surveillance devices or hidden entrances. Their monitoring is somehow, the Witcher concluded after a thorough inspection. Not through any means I can detect, but this entire structure seems designed for observation. Agreed, Yennefer confirmed. There's a magical resonance throughout these chambers, subtle but persistent. Not necessarily malicious, but certainly attentive. Vesemir joined them near the main chamber's center. What's our approach here? Cooperation or caution? Both, Rias suggested. We need the information and resources they can provide, but we maintain our guard and reveal only what serves our interests. Akino, who had been examining the chamber's adaptive features with fascination, turned to the group. This place combines magic and technology in ways I've never seen. Some elements resemble devil crafting, others are completely foreign. The curator mentioned that all spheres were once a single reality, Issei recalled. Maybe this place preserves knowledge from before the original separation. Siri, already showing remarkable improvement from the healing treatment, joined the discussion from her recovery bed. If that's true, then this council might possess information crucial to understanding what's happening with the conjunction, and your role in it, Issei. All eyes turned to him, and Issei felt the weight of their collective situation settling on his shoulders. His actions, his very existence, seemed increasingly central to forces beyond his comprehension. I think we need to learn everything we can from them, he decided. But we should be selective about what we share in return, especially regarding my abilities and limitations. Rias nodded approvingly. Exactly. Knowledge is power in negotiations like these. We should establish what we actually want from this council, Yennefer added pragmatically. Beyond immediate sanctuary and information. A way home would be nice, Kiba suggested. For all of us. Protection from the hunt, Geralt added. They tracked us across worlds before. No reason to think they won't find us here eventually. And understanding, Issei concluded quietly. I need to know what's happening to me, why my elder blood manifested now, how it interacts with my devil essence, and what it means for this conjunction they keep talking about. Yennefer approached him, violet eyes studying him with clinical precision that gradually softened to something more personal. How are you feeling after the transition? Your energies seem more integrated than before. Issei considered the question, taking inventory of his internal state. To his surprise, the dual energies within him no longer felt like opposing forces maintaining an uneasy truce. Instead, they flowed alongside one another with newfound harmony, distinct but complementary. Better, actually, he admitted. Like the two parts of me are starting to understand each other. The borderlands may be influencing your condition, Yennefer theorized. This environment exists at the intersection of multiple magical systems. It might naturally facilitate integration of divergent energies. Which could be exactly why your elder blood brought us here, Rias observed, joining them. Perhaps this place offers something unique that neither of our worlds could provide. The three of them stood in momentary silence, a triangle of connected purposes despite their different origins. Issei felt a curious resonance between them, Yennefer's ancient magical knowledge, Rias's devil heritage, and his own hybrid nature creating a synergy none of them fully understood but all could sense. We should rest while we can, Rias finally suggested, breaking the moment. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and we'll need our strength. As the group dispersed to their individual quarters, Issei found himself standing at a window that overlooked the impossible landscape of the borderlands. Floating islands drifted in the swirling void, some close enough to reveal settlements or strange environments, others distant enough to appear as mere specks of reality in the cosmic soup of merged dimensions. He sensed rather than heard Siri approach, her footsteps nearly silent even without trying for stealth. Overwhelming, isn't it? She commented, joining him at the window. So many worlds, so many possibilities. How do you handle it? Issei asked. Knowing your power connects to something this vast. Siri considered the question, her green eyes reflecting the swirling energies beyond the glass. I don't think anyone truly handles it. You just adapt. Learn to live with the knowledge that reality is far more complex than most people ever realize. She turned to face him, her expression serious. The hunt will find us eventually. They always do. When that happens, you'll need to make difficult choices. What kind of choices? Between power and control. Between what others want from you and what you want for yourself. Her gaze was sympathetic but unyielding. I spent years running from my abilities, then years being hunted because of them. Neither path brought peace. What did? Issei asked quietly. A small smile touched her lips. Acceptance. Understanding that my power is neither a curse nor a blessing, simply a reality to be managed. And surrounding myself with people who see me, not just my abilities. Her gaze drifted briefly toward where Geralt and Yennefer were conversing across the room. Issei followed her gaze, then looked toward Rias, who was quietly instructing her peerage on security rotations for the night. I think I understand. Get some rest, Siri advised, patting his shoulder lightly. Tomorrow we begin learning what this council truly wants, and whether they can actually help us. As she departed, Issei returned his attention to the window, watching energy patterns dance between fragmented realities. For the first time since his powers had awakened, he felt something approaching peace, not because his situation had simplified, but because here, in this impossible place between worlds, the contradiction of his existence made a strange kind of sense. Beyond the Citadel's protective barriers, the borderlands continued their slow, inexorable expansion, fragmented pieces of countless realities gradually merging into something new and unprecedented. Whether that process represented evolution or catastrophe remained to be seen, but Issei could no longer deny his connection to it. Whatever came next, whatever choices awaited him, would shape not just his fate but potentially the future of reality itself. That knowledge should have terrified him, yet as he watched the swirling energies of the void, he felt an unexpected sense of purpose taking root within his soul. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.